The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is the Town of Hempstead Town Board meeting for February 23rd, 2021. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Clavin.
Here.
Councilman Blakeman. Here. Councilman Carini.
Here.
Councilman D'Esposito.
I'm here.
Councilman Dunn.
Here.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Here.
Councilman Muscarella.
Yeah. Great. I now ask that Councilman D'Esposito lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, again, good morning. And because of the governor's executive orders and also because of COVID-19 pandemic, today's public hearings will allow for both in-person participation and telephonic participation using our very popular GoToWebinar. The instructions for the telephonic participation to the GoToWebinar, as well as today's pertinent documents regarding today's public hearings, are also available on the town website. After the clerk calls each public hearing, the public who are at Town Hall will first have their comments, and then our participants will go to the webinar where they will be allowed to make their comments about working with our esteemed moderator. All participants in the GoToWebinar must pay attention to the case called by our town clerk. When the public hearing is called in which you wish to speak, you must please remember to raise your hand using the button on the GoToWebinar as explained in the town's instructions on the website. If you do not click the raise your hand button when the public hearing on which you wish to speak is called, then you will not be called upon. All participants on the GoToWebinar will be muted until the moderator calls your name to speak. You must pay attention for your name and begin speaking when your name is called, or the moderator will go to the next participant. If you are participating in the GoToWebinar and watching on live stream, then you must mute live stream when it is your turn to speak, or you will not be understood. Every participant will be given one chance to speak for up to 3 minutes in accordance with the town board rules. When you're done speaking or your time is up, the moderator will again mute you on the GoToWebinar. At the end of the public hearings portion of the meeting, the GoToWebinar will be turned off, and I encourage all those who are using GoToWebinar to continue listening and watching the meeting on the town's live stream webpage. Please also note that anyone using profanity or straying off topic will be muted. Madam Clerk, would you please call the very first of our public hearings today?
The first public hearing involves a proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in Elmont.
Okay, does any member of the board wish to be heard on this item? Okay, is there anyone here at Town Hall that wishes to be heard on this item? I don't have anybody registered on item number 1. And we will continue now to the GoToWebinar portion of our program, where now you can click your hand to be heard on this item only. I now ask you to click it, and we will ask our moderator, has anybody clicked the raise their hand button?
Supervisor, one participant has clicked raise your hand.
Okay.
Mr. Will Flo. Will Flo, you are unmuted. Please go ahead with your comments.
Good morning, Mr. Flo. If you could please just give your name and address for the record, that would be awesome. Mr. Flo? Mr. Flo? I can hear you, Mr. Flo. Mr. Moderator, any luck with Mr. Flo?
Mr. Flo, you are unmuted. Please go ahead with your comment.
Mr. Flo? Okay, Mr. Moderator. Anybody else with their raise their hand button up there?
Supervisor, no other participant clicked raise your hand on this public hearing.
Okay, at this time then, may I please have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the local law be adopted.
I second that motion.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the item on the calendar?
We have a proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in Baldwin, Elmont, Franklin Square, and Oceanside.
Okay, does any member of the board wish to be heard on this item? Okay, I do not have anyone that has signed in here at Town Halls to wishes to be heard on item number 2. So now, if you would like to be heard on item number 2, I'm sorry. Don't worry, you don't have it on the list there. Good morning. If you give your name and address for the record.
Meta J. Maraday, Baldwin resident. With regard to this proposed law, I need some more clarification as to what are the requirements and what's going to be the follow-up with regard to people parking and or standing in locations where they're not supposed to. And secondly, as far as any town-related property, the lack of the issues of snow removal and trash, that again is a town responsibility and a taxpayer obligation. That has definitely been lax, so residents want to know how these types of laws are going to be enforced.
Mr. Town Attorney.
Supervisor, the laws that are the subject of this proposed hearing, or the hearing that we are having on the proposed local law, part will be incorporated into the state vehicle and traffic law. They're enforced not merely by code enforcement officers, but also by anyone in law enforcement, such as the Nassau County Police Department and village police, who have jurisdiction over that. In certain instances, there are many divisions, sometimes referred to generically as meter personnel, who would look at other types of traffic issues other than simply a meter, but they're charged specifically with enforcing traffic and parking regulations.
So this as it pertains to the cars parking themselves, but what about the cars that pull up, dump trash and things of that nature that puts a burden on our sanitation, as well as our other enforcements? Like, what is that? And regarding the removal of snow and debris from town-related properties, so that if a person has an accident on that property, just walking on the sidewalk that you cannot get to because of the bad weather, because there's certain communities in this township that get cleaned up by town representatives a lot quicker and a lot better than others. And that's a problem because of the number of lawsuits that we don't seem to win in this township, that could needlessly have residents avoid harm and death if we were more proactive versus reactive, because we can't afford to pay for all of this foolishness that goes on without getting proper satisfaction in communities, particularly along the South Shore.
Well, ma'am, you're raising a very important issue regarding snow removal in general. But right now, this proposed local law is the subject of the hearing, and it's quite specific as to standing prohibitions in certain sections of the community. So I appreciate your comments, as I'm sure the town board does, but it's not germane to the public hearing.
Okay, well, what is germane to the public hearing? And I'm still not getting clarity as to how the actual law will be enforced for those who continue to park in prohibited areas, as well as those sections that have specific signage. You're saying it's a collaboration, so I'm still confused.
Ms. Merida, I think the respected town attorney said that the enforcement will be falling upon not only potentially our public safety officers, but the Nassau County Police Department, if I'm correct, Joe, that if someone parks there and there's a call into whatever district it may be, the local precinct, the police department would have to respond, and now there'd be the appropriate law that they could write a citation and give the person a penalty for doing something improper.
Exactly right, Supervisor, and I know the reason why these proposals are the public hearings, and it's mandated that we have a public hearing, is because they get incorporated into the state code. That's the authority given to the town board, but only after a public hearing. Enforcement, however, is exactly as you said.
Okay, and since I have a minute left, so for residents who need to make calls, as opposed to this being addressed as a 911 call, which is supposed to be reserved for emergencies, where are residents supposed to direct their calls or issues? Since they can't get through to their town officials, who seem to refuse to respond via mail, email, snail mail, or you can't visit, you can't set up a meeting anymore that they would cancel anyway. So how do residents get through to people to let them know?
You call your local police precinct. You don't have to dial 911. You can call your local police precinct. I grew up in Valley Stream. I was, what were we, Bruce, were we 5? 5th precinct? 5. You call your local precinct, wherever it may be. That's what you do.
Okay.
Aren't you in the first? I think you're in the first.
Yes.
Yeah, so you'd call that precinct and make the report.
And Ms. Marity, let me make a point too. If it's a ongoing, a specific area where it's continuing, where they're violating the signs, you should reach out to your precinct POP officer. They will come out and they will address the issue. So I would definitely reach out to the first precinct POP officer and point out these problems areas, and they will address it.
We do, and we have. I'm just, again, questioning this law, but The town attorney explained it as far as it being uploaded to the state, I guess, for more services. But again, if we need to increase, because the first precinct is an excellent precinct, and I've stood behind all of our law enforcement officers and those first responders like myself who are out here trying to protect the public. But again, it becomes a matter of the lack of resources. We can't just keep saying, call your precinct when they're overworked and underutilized and under-resourced. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'll be back.
Okay. Mr. Moderator, are there anybody at the GoToWebinar that's clicked raise their hand?
Supervisor, no participant clicked raise your hand on this public hearing.
Okay, then I'm going to now ask that I have a motion.
Move that the hearing be closed and the local law adopted.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn. Aye. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye. Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the next item on the calendar.
We have a proposed local law regarding arterial stops in Baldwin.
Okay, is any member of the board wish to be heard on this item? Okay, I do not have, oh, hold on. I'm going to hit refresh there, Dominic. That's okay. If you give me an address for the record again, please.
Mina Merriday, Baldwin resident. Okay, so I just, again, need clarification with regard to this proposed law on arterial stops.
Mr. Town Attorney.
Once again, the town has the ability to put into place things like stop sign, handicap parking, other limitations on vehicle traffic and vehicle parking. It has the force of law such that a law enforcement officer can issue a summons that then would have to be resolved by the person who violated the matter. For instance, let's say that a stop sign was erected on an arterial street in Baldwin, and somebody just ran through the stop sign and a policeman happened to be there. They would be in a position to enforce that by writing the ticket. Depending upon how serious the traffic violation was, if the person were also speeding, for instance, they would write additional summonses. And that has the force of law, of punitive criminal law, albeit at the lowest level, that of a violation, possibly, and worst case scenario, a misdemeanor. Because we are empowered as a municipality to determine what is the best place to put stop signs and to put in other parking regulations, we have to have a public hearing in which to do so. We have to have the public hearing because of this enforcement. But the enforcement, once again, would be by the police departments and to a lesser extent, if anybody is there and they could actually see the violation taking place, one of the other code enforcement agencies.
So exactly what's the need to amend section 197.5 if that section initially was not supposed to do the work? Again, it seems like we have continuous updates when, to my understanding and awareness, it should have been done right the first time. So just to have a public hearing, I get it as far as it pertains to public safety and things of that nature, but we're amending laws, adding laws, and I mean, again, that becomes billable hours for somebody to look up and say, oh, the law that we passed through a town meeting and a hearing last year is not good enough, strong enough, or the actual law that we should have passed, so let's just put this one on the books, and then again, claim the time it takes to justify why we're doing this. So what was section 197-5 to begin with?
I don't think that the way you're characterizing it is quite correct. It's not that we didn't do it right the first time. There's constant change and evolution throughout the community in terms of traffic patterns, places where there's residents, places where there's business, places where there might even be light industry, and as a consequence, the need is often spotted by residents who are right there, who live right there, who work right there, businesses that operate right in that vicinity. They would reach out to the town and suggest that there be some sort of parking regulation or stop sign or something of that nature. The town, through the highway department and our traffic and control departments, would then go out, do a study and conclude, you know, there has been a change in traffic patterns. This is something that probably should be corrected by what this citizen, this resident or group of residents has proposed. So we are going to suggest it to the town board and we'll speak to the issue and then have a public hearing on it to see what the public thinks, if anybody is opposed or anybody supports. It's very rare that anybody comes out in opposition to one of these proposals. Oftentimes when people have shown up for such hearings, they're usually the proponents whose idea it originally was. But it's not because there's something was done once and wasn't done correctly. It's a constant evolution in patterns. As the, again, as I said, as the businesses change or residents or the number of cars change, if only because children in a household grow up and there are more cars as they become drivers while they're still living in their house with their parents. That could, in and of itself, increase the volume of traffic in a neighborhood.
What does section 197.5 actually state that was amended?
I'll have to get that very specifically, that specific section for you at a later date. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. Because again, I'm for one not against anything that's going to improve the fact that people drive down the streets in Baldwin going to the no businesses. So there hasn't been any change as far as Baldwin pertains to having businesses. We still have the same empty lot, the same empty store. We still have no supermarket in central Baldwin. So as far as that goes, I'm just curious as to how we have these types of regulations as it pertains to stops when our roads are in such disrepair, both town and county, and we don't get the justification. And unfortunately, to your point, yes, it should be allowable for the residents to come to speak, but these meetings are inconvenient as far as the time period. And now this process, granted we're in the midst of a pandemic, but this process where the town board is not even incorporating the true language of the law to allow the numbers of people, residents, to be able to be before you here, as opposed to being clumped, socially unsafe in a foyer area when everybody here is comfortably spaced and seated. So please forgive me if I'm not trying to come across as if I'm not saying public safety is not a #1 issue. But right now, we still have residents who don't have access to this because they're working 2 and 3 jobs to stay in the home. So we don't have an issue per se with too many people living in a home. We have an issue with people leaving their homes in the middle of the night because they can't pay the taxes here and they're not getting their services here. And first and foremost, they're not given the opportunity to express their freedom of speech and to exercise their freedom of assembly. Thank you. I'll be back.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, is there anybody at the go-to webinar raising their hand?
Supervisor, one participant clicked raise their hand. Helena Hillian. Helena Hillian, you are unmuted. Please go ahead and make your comment.
Good morning.
Helena, you're muted on your side. Unmute yourself and please make your comment for us.
Good morning.
Helena, good morning. If you just give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, good morning. My name is Helena Hillian. My address is 1523 Coolidge Avenue, Baldwin, New York. And I'm raising this question because I went on to the Town of Hempstead's website recently to get information specifically for Town of Hempstead residents, especially particularly seniors who can't get the information that they need if they're looking to get tested for COVID-19 or to either try to get vaccinated for COVID.
Excuse me, point of order. What does this have to do with a stop sign in Baldwin?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Could we move the question then?
With that.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, may I please have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the local law adopted.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito. Councilman Dunn. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Councilman Muscarella.
Aye. Madam Clerk, would you please call the next item?
We have a proposed handicap parking on public streets in Baldwin, Belrose Terrace, Elmont, Franklin Square, Uniondale, and Wantagh.
Okay. Ms. Meriday, if you give me name and address for the record, I see you're up first.
Meta Meriday, Baldwin resident. Where does one begin? Again, I'm just curious as to I believe the town attorney spoke to a part of it, but what is the actual procedure and process for residents to be able to determine how they can qualify for handicap parking when we have an increasing number of residents, not just who are seniors, but have increased disabilities, either tied to or exacerbated by
Mr. Supervisor, could I answer the question?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I'm just, you know, our town attorney gave a very comprehensive legal dissertation about the process. I'm just gonna distill it to its clearest form. Whether it's a stop sign or a no parking zone or a handicap space, somebody has to petition the town, either an individual, a group of individuals, a civic association, a chamber of commerce. They petition the town. We then send it to the traffic department. They do a comprehensive analysis as to whether or not the traffic control that is being requested is something that is needed in that area. Then what happens is they make a recommendation to the town board. We decide on the town board whether or not, based on that recommendation, whether to bring it forward to a public hearing where people have an opportunity to be heard on that issue and come before the board and say whether they're in favor of it or not. We vote on it. If we vote for it, it's adopted. If we vote against it, it's not. That's it.
And to supplement a little on that, because I thought you said, we don't grant handicap parking from the town of Hempstead. That comes from Nassau County. So if somebody wanted a handicap placard, they'd have to go to Nassau County. We don't grant those out, because I think that was something you might have incorporated in the question. I just want to follow up on that.
Well, because it says proposed handicap parking. So
Yeah, so if somebody wants a handicap spot, we'll create a handicap spot. You're not creating a special spot for an individual, but I'm saying, you know, you said who grants handicap parking. This is for the spot, but for the placards and what, that's Nassau County. If I'm not mistaken, Bruce, is that the Nassau County Board of Health?
Yeah, they issue the placard that gives you the right to park in a handicap space, in any handicap space, whether it's on private property or public property. This is a spot on a town road that has been designated for use by somebody who has that handicap placard. They could be someone who lives in the community. They could be somebody who lives anywhere. It could be in a commercial area or residential area. But the determination is made by this board based on the recommendations after a comprehensive analysis, which also includes canvassing the neighborhood so the residents in the neighborhood get a chance to be heard.
And not only that, you have to get it from your position. I have one, so that I park handicapped. But you have to get it from your position.
I understand that. I understand all of that. But unfortunately, I'm one of the isolated few versus the many residents who call on me, even to the point where they were asking me outside in the foyer here as to what the process was to come in here to actually speak their issue. That is what we have for the amount of taxes that we pay in this township, in this county, is the extreme disconnect. And the fact that we have all of this money that we read about in the paper and the newspaper, and the fact that I don't even know if it's ongoing, and maybe the town attorney can speak to that, as it's a legal issue, that Nassau County is suing, or was suing, the township regarding getting a portion of the CARES Act funding that was supposed to be geared towards paying for COVID-related activities, as opposed to touchless toilets and giving raises to people in the Friends and Family Plan. My question has to do with residents who are not aware or cannot seem to get to their elected officials, a number of whom I'm looking at right now, to get any type of petition in place to find out about not what they get in their car window, but what they can get in front of their town tax and county taxed residents, so that they do not jeopardize their relatives and loved ones who need to get access. I myself am parked in a snowbank that should be a cleared handicapped parking space. I may be facing a ticket because I'm not sure. Am I in deep enough because there's again, a bank of snow in that corner of the last handicapped parking spot? Because yes, Councilwoman Gooseby, I have a handicap sticker myself, tied to not just my 9/11 first responder, which I should not be standing here this long and have to walk a country mile back and forth to be able to exercise my freedom of speech. So I'm not here just because I'm trying to waste time away and to take any of you away from your coffee break or your Starbucks setup in the back room. I want to get answers for those who do not get the answers or the respect of a response from their elected officials.
Thank you, Ms. Meriday. And just for the record, I don't drink Starbucks. Mr. Moderator, is there anybody on the GoToWebinar?
Yes, Supervisor. Pearl Jacobs?
Okay.
Pearl Jacobs, you're unmuted. Please go ahead with your comment.
Ms. Jacobs, good morning. If you give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Pearl Jacobs, Uniondale. This might sound like a rhetorical question, but my question is, how does the town of Hempstead propose to enforce these handicap parking restrictions within the town of Hempstead? The root cause of these parking issues is the town's failure to enforce residential housing requirements when it comes to single family occupancy.
Well, in relation to the parking restrictions, and I think Councilman D'Esposito can answer that I believe it is the Nassau County Police Department that does the enforcement. Is that correct, Anthony?
Unless it's in a town parking field.
Yep, okay. So it'd either be your local precinct, or if it's in a town parking field, you'd call it to public safety, and then the town could issue a ticket there.
Yes, and to go on, like I said, the issue that pertains to these parking issues in our community is definitely, the root cause is the lack of the town's adherence to single-family occupancy.
Yeah, no, I know. Ms. Jacobs, you're very familiar with everything here, and we've a good working relationship. It's really, we're focusing right now on the handicap parking. Do you have any other comments regarding this hearing?
She could not walk, she had to walk 3 blocks to get to her car because of all of the houses in her area where there are 12, 15 people living in a house.
Okay. Again, Ms. Jacobs, in all due respect, we're talking about the handicap parking on public streets in the area.
Cars in the driveway that are blocking the sidewalks, where you have cars that are double parked in front of homes.
Did you call the local precinct?
Where is code enforcement when it comes to enforcing the single-family occupancy restrictions and the laws in our community? That is the root cause of these ongoing...
All right, Ms. Jacobs, like I said, we're focusing on the handicap parking spots right now. So, again, thank you very much. Okay. Absolutely.
Supervisor, I move that the public hearing be closed and the item be adopted.
Supervisor Clegg.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn. Aye. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye. Madam Clerk, would you please call the next item?
Should they be called in conjunction with each other?
Would you like them called in conjunction with each other? County Attorney?
Okay.
Okay, Madam Clerk, yes.
Thank you. Item 5A is a resolution adopting a secret negative declaration and determination of non-significance in connection with an application to rezone a parcel of land in Oceanside. And public hearing number 5 is the application of Broward Avenue LLC on behalf of Oceanside Jewish Center Incorporated for rezoning from Residence B District to Business X District in Oceanside.
Gentlemen, can I just ask that you move the easels just so we can see the speaker? When the public comes in, I don't want them to be blocked.
Or, depending on who the speaker is, maybe you can put the easels in front of him.
I think that's perfect. All right.
If our presenters would give their name and address for the record, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. William Benesso for Chelly Deacon Tirana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York. Here on behalf of the petitioner, Brower Avenue LLC. The petitioner is contract vendee on a portion of the property known as the Oceanside Jewish Center. That property is situated in Oceanside with frontage on both Brower Avenue and Oceanside Road. With me this morning is a principal of Brower Avenue LLC, Mr. Charles Weinraub. Also with us are representatives of the Oceanside Jewish Center, whom you'll hear from shortly. We also have a real estate expert in Barry Nelson, a traffic and parking expert in Patrick Lenahan, and our architect, David Mamina from H2M. The application before the board is to consider a rezoning of the portion of the premises that my client is in contract to purchase. As you'll hear in greater detail from Mr. Gurman of the Oceanside Jewish Center, the center has been there for a very long time. It's a conservative congregation. Over the decades, their family count, their membership has declined, and they find themselves in a position where they no longer need the very large facility that they have on the over 4 acres of property that they maintain. At the same time, as noted in my petition to the board, Long Island is an aging community. According to the 2007 to 2017 census report, the people of the age 65 and older population in Nassau County grew 22% between 2007 and 2017. Moreover, the age 85 and older population in Nassau County grew 52% over that same period. And in Oceanside alone, approximately 17.1% of the population is 65% and older. We are in need of senior housing and senior assisted living facilities. That being said, my client reached out to the OJC and discussed the potential purchase of the property and the redevelopment of the portion that he would acquire with a 119-bed assisted living facility that would be built on the southerly portion of the property. The northerly portion of the property would be retained by the OJC, and a portion of their existing building, if you take a look at the site plan, you can see it. It's to the north of the property, will be maintained for their services, for their religious school and nursery school programs, and the lesser activities that they will be conducting from their facilities. The proposed assisted living facility will be 3 stories, 3 floors, 3 stories. It'll have a height to the eaves of 33 feet 10 inches. There is a gabled roof on the building that raises it higher. The highest point of the proposed roof line was 44 feet, but the eave line is just about 34 feet. And our architect, after some meetings that we had with community representatives, our architect is looking at ways to reduce the height of that building and has been able to do so to some extent. The facility will be available, obviously, to those in the community, and quite frankly, a facility like this will probably be populated by people who live within a 3 to 5 mile range of this area, or the families, the children of people who live within a 3 to 5 mile radius of this location. That is typically what is seen. The site will provide a total of 130, excuse me, let me make sure that's correct, 134 parking spaces on both sites. There will be a shared parking access agreement to accommodate the needs of both the OJC and the assisted living facility. As you'll hear from our traffic consultant, the traffic and parking demand and generation for an assisted living facility is very low, and consequently, we expect that the parking to be provided will be able to clearly accommodate both the OJC and the assisted living facility. In addition to this rezoning, the application will require variances from the Board of Appeals. We have not yet been given a denial notice, but we know that there will be a parking variance. Additionally, we may need some setback relief for the parking in the front yard setback.
And then because the OJC is going to be reduced, its property is going to be reduced in size, that will need to, we will need to modify their special use permit for their continued operation. So this application will also be going to the Board of Appeals. And then obviously, because it is more than an acre, this will also be coming back to this board for site plan approval. So as much as we are here today presenting this case to you, this is just the first step in the process. There is, we have had some community discussions. We will continue to have community discussions to address concerns and try to mitigate those concerns as best we can. But we are here today just to present the zone change application. So that having been said, unless there are questions of me, I'd like to call upon Mr. Gurman of the OJC.
Any members of the board have any questions, Mr. Benessa?
I'll wait till the entire presentation is done.
Okay, thank you.
If you give a second, he's got to wipe down the podium and the mic for his next speaker.
I'm going to call upon Mr. William Gurman. He is a board member for the Oceanside Jewish Center.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Berman. If you just please give your name and address for the record.
Yes, good morning. William Gurman, 3355 Frederick Street in Oceanside. Oceanside Jewish Center, or OJC, as it is more commonly referred to, has been at the 2860 Brower Avenue location in Oceanside for over 70 years, since its establishment in 1947 as a conservative temple. The Jewish community in Oceanside is relatively unique in that all of the three main branches of Judaism are present, with Orthodox, conservative, and Reform temples. This also further strengthens the religious diversity of Oceanside as a whole. As a house of worship in Oceanside, OJC has a long history of providing enriching and meaningful religious services, learning and other educational instruction, social activities interconnected with our religious purposes, and caring for its members, lifestyle events such as providing comfort and support in death and illness, and celebrations in times of joy. OJC also plays an important role in the larger Oceanside community, being an active participant in the Oceanside Interfaith Council, as well as participating in local events with other houses of worship and community centers, providing creative programs to promote unity, harmony, and friendship. In addition to prayer services, OJC offers an engaging nursery and religious school programs, among other programs and activities. Though there are larger nursery school facilities serving hundreds of children in Oceanside, OJC maintains a small nursery school program of just 30 children from Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. The nursery school provides these preschoolers with an initial glimpse into the exciting and meaningful Jewish practices and holidays. OJC's religious school program for children K through 7 currently runs just twice a week from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. for about 20 children. At its height, OJC's religious school had 500 children compared to the current 20 children, and its nursery school close to 200 children compared to the current enrollment of just 30. Attendance at weekday services, Sunday through Friday mornings and evenings, are about 10 to 15 people, and on Saturday mornings, about 40 to 60 people. For the holiday services of Sukkot, Passover, and Shavuot, attendance can increase to 70 to 80 people. And for the high holiday services of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, just 3 days out of the year, attendance is 400 to 500 people, which compared to just 15 years ago is a third of the attendance we used to get for the high holiday services. There are also minor holidays such as Hanukkah and Purim, with programs for young children to participate. Life cycle celebrations such as baby namings, bar and bat mitzvahs are spread out throughout the year. Yet, as membership has significantly declined, these events happen less often. In fact, over the past 30 years, OJC's membership has decreased from 800 families down to 150 families. We also recognize that other temples and other houses of worship on Long Island have experienced similar declines in membership during this period. OJC's existing property and building once supported a congregation of over 800 families with the much larger religious and nursery school programs previously described. The building is now much too large for its current 150 families, and it is in need of improvements, upgrades, and renovations. The significant decrease in our membership and enrollment in our school programs has also had a very adverse effect on the financial affairs of OJC. With that backdrop, OJC's membership expressed their desire to remain and to continue serving Oceanside's Jewish residents, particular as the only conservative temple in Oceanside. The leadership of OJC were charged with formulating a plan to accomplish those goals for the future of OJC. We strongly believe that the approval and completion of this project will allow OJC to continue to be a vital and active house of worship in Oceanside. A significant portion of the proceeds from the sale of part of the OJC property will be invested back into downsizing the building and making the necessary and needed improvements and renovations. The intent is also to set aside the remaining balance of the proceeds as a reserve to offset future operating expenses that are not covered by the reduced membership revenue. Changing the zoning of a portion of OJC's property to permit the use of an assisted living facility that would provide needed housing and assistance to the aging population will be consistent with the mission of any church, synagogue, or other house of worship. As OJC intends to remain in the Oceanside community at its current location, the new assisted living facility will become our neighbor. OJC could not have chosen a better new neighbor. We're extremely comfortable with the plans provided with this application and are in favor of approving the change in zoning applied for permitting the use of an assisted living facility. That completes my statement on behalf of OJC, and we thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bremer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gurman. As the board heard, the membership has significantly declined, as many as 800 down to 150. The types of activities have significantly declined. In the new facility, gone will be any formal catered affairs. They used to do catering with a full kitchen. They will now only have a warming kitchen and a small social hall for those baby namings and small brisses and bar and bat mitzvahs that they referenced. So the amount of activity will significantly decline. And because of that, and because of the way that they will now use the facility, we certainly believe that the parking demand for the site will decline significantly, and the parking provided, in addition to the parking on the assisted living facility site, will easily accommodate that. But you'll hear more about that from our traffic expert. What I'd like to do now is, if I may, is call Mr. Barry Nelson. He is a real estate appraiser who's been recognized by this board on multiple occasions and granted permission to give expert opinion testimony. I would ask that he be qualified as such and be allowed to provide his testimony in the narrative.
Okay, thank you. Morning, Mr. Nelson. If you give me name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Good morning. It's Barry Nelson, 220 Pettit Avenue, Belmore, New York, 11710. The subject property is a unique piece of property. While it's currently improved with a religious institution, the religious institution will remain on the parcel. It's on the northeast portion of the property. Unique in that its frontage is on Brower Avenue to the east Oceanside Road to the west. It's within 1 mile of Merrick Road to the north. In fact, Oceanside Road, north of Merrick Road, would have the facility, the Mount Sinai South Nassau Hospital. To the west, within a half a mile, access from numerous streets, Davison Avenue, Fairview Avenue, Bellevue Avenue, leading down into the business district along Long Beach Road. To the south, Oceanside Road and Long Beach Road would lead into Long Beach. Other uses in the area would include opposite the subject property for its entire frontage along Broward Avenue is a condominium townhouse development, rezoned, originally it was business and residential B, to a CA zoning. The townhouses consist of 2-story dwellings, approximately 42 units on just a little less than 2.5 acres. There is a secondary parcel northeast corner of Oakview Avenue and Broward Avenue that has additional parking for the townhouses. Single-family residential to the south along Broward Avenue, Sunnyside Road, Sylvan Court. Some non-conforming parcels in the area. Along Oceanside Road, there's single 1- and 2-family dwellings. To the west side of the subject property on the west side of Oceanside Road, they are Cape Cods, colonials, high ranches, and split levels, originally built in the 1940s and 1950s. Over the years, there has been introduction of younger colonials and high ranches. The residences are all well maintained. Immediately north of the subject property is a neighborhood strip center, small retail with parking, and a service station at the triangular corner of Broward Avenue and Oceanside Road. The proposed development would be for the southerly side on in excess of 2 acres, and access would be off of Broward Avenue and Oceanside Road. Over the years, I have worked on many assisted living throughout town of Hempstead, county of Nassau, and in Suffolk County. Assisted living is a compatible use to both commercial, business, and residential. For this application, I looked at several facilities, and this board knows me. I've been testifying before this board probably in excess of 35, almost 40 years now. And each time I have an application like the subject property, I'm able to use my data and other centers that have been, or other assisted livings developments that have been approved. For this application, I looked at 3 developments. One would be the most recent one that I worked on several years ago, the Village Greens at Levittown, and it's known as Village Greens, Levittown, a Carlisle development. On a approximately similar sized parcel, it originally was a business zoning, but it did go before the Board of Appeals for certain variances and special exceptions. It's approximately the same size that's being proposed in this application on 2 acres, and that site, 2 acres, is adjacent to, on 3 sides, residential dwellings in Levittown, Parkside Schoolhouse Road, and it's just started leasing out within the last year. The application was back in 2012, and originally, and then had the approvals. Construction started in approximately 2018, and now it's available for occupancy. It has been some leasing up as well. Property values have continued to appreciate. Let's just go back. That property was a mixed use where it had a former bowling alley and it had the application for commercial and business use as well as the assisted living. Property values are continuing to appreciate. Pre-COVID and even post-COVID now has appreciated substantially, and that's now with the facility developed. I looked at another one, which would be almost an entirely residential area, and that would be the Bristol's Assisted Living at North Woodmere, 477 Hungry Harbor Road. And that's three-story building, slightly larger facility on a similar size parcel, business zone, surrounded by residential. Originally, I think it was back in the 2002 when it was developed. I looked at it in 2014 when I did another application, probably for the Village Green. And again today, property values originally in 2014 was around $350 to $550. Values now at that location are anywhere from $550 to over $1 million for the same type of houses, colonials, high ranches. Another facility I looked at was the Sunrise Senior Living of Lynbrook, assisted living. It's on a slightly larger parcel, similar size, similar number of beds, and that's surrounded in the middle of a block surrounded by houses to the north, south, west, and on the east side on Franklin Avenue. Again, I looked at property values back in 2014, 2015. Values were anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000. In the same vicinity, the same blocks, today, values are in 2019, early 2020, anywhere from $550,000 to $775,000. These are just three that I looked at. I've worked on many. You have the Bristol on Merrick Avenue in East Meadow. You have a Sunrise in East Meadow at the northwest corner of Earl Ovington Avenue and Merrick Avenue, nearby vicinity. Very limited activities as far as on a daily activity. Parking fields are always available, open. As far as this property, as I mentioned, it's unique in that currently there's a religious institution on the entire property. It is off the tax roll as it's tax exempt. With a redevelopment as proposed, the religious portion, which is would be on approximately 1.5 acres, would remain tax exempt, but the southerly portion for the assisted living, if approved, would be back on the tax rolls and would significantly generate school taxes without any burden on school district, no school-age children, and general taxes as well. In my opinion, the application is a reasonable request for the 2+ acre site. It'll cohabit with the residential in the area and support the business facility just to the north and along Long Beach Road. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. I will remain for the rest of the hearing and be here available for future questions.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Any member of the board have any questions right now for Mr. Nelson? No? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Vanessa?
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Our last direct witness is Mr. Patrick Lenahan. Mr. Lenahan is a traffic engineer, transportation engineer with VHB Engineering. He has appeared before this board on multiple occasions and permitted to give expert opinion testimony in the areas of parking and traffic. I would ask that he be permitted to do so today and that he provide his testimony in the narrative.
Good morning, Mr. Lennon. If you give your name and address for the record, appreciate that.
Good morning, Patrick Lenahan, 100 Motor Parkway, Hauppauge, New York. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Board. My name is Patrick Lenahan. I am Director of Transportation at VHB's Long Island office in Hauppauge. We were retained by the applicant to study possible traffic and parking issues related to the proposed change of zone, which you are considering today. To that end, in terms of access, the site would continue to be served by 3 access points, 2 on Brower Avenue, as on Mr. Mamina's plan, and 1 on Oceanside Road, the 1 on Oceanside Road being signalized such that persons moving on and off the site could do so with the benefit of the protection of the traffic signal. These 3 driveways will continue to provide excellent access to the site and will help disperse traffic in various directions. With regard to trip generation, it's important to understand that assisted living facilities, as it's been mentioned by previous speakers, is a very low traffic generator. It's one of the most innocuous things you could consider. As documented by extensive research published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers and also by VHB's experience in working on at least 15 other assisted living facilities across the island. The staff shift changes do not overlap with usual commuter peak traffic hours, and very few, if any, of the residents drive. There's no need for them to drive since the facility provides most of their services on site and also operates a shuttle to drive them off site when needed. The trip generation numbers reflect these low volumes and indicate that the frequency of additional vehicles traveling on the nearby roads would be in the range of 1 additional extra vehicle every 5 to 6 minutes. These volumes won't affect traffic conditions in the area. They won't cause any congestion in the area and are a consequence of how low the traffic generation with this sort of use really is. In regards to parking, we looked at the site plan, the adequacy of the parking as it pertains to both of the OJC uses to remain and the assisted living facility, and our analysis shows that even when making some conservative assumptions, the combined parking for the site will easily be handled on the site as designed. There will be a surplus on the site even at peak times. Even if both uses were to experience their peak demand at the same time, which they do not. In conclusion, it's my professional opinion that the proposed change of zone will not result in any significant traffic flow issues and that adequate parking will be provided on site. I could take questions now or we could continue to progress.
I think we'll wait until, I know the okay.
Any member of the board have any questions for Ms. Lanahan?
I'll wait till the end.
Okay, thank you. All right.
That's our direct presentation. Mr. Supervisor and members of the board, we stand ready to answer any questions that the board may have and also respond to any public comment.
Okay, we obviously we have a number of people here from the public who want to comment both personally and online, but maybe we'll start with any questions initially we have of the board members.
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor. I probably received, I don't know, a few dozen emails regarding this change of zoning, so I just want to put it on the record and make sure that those that are listening at home know that those emails were submitted to our clerk and they are on the record. I do, Supervisor, have 3 emails specifically that were asked just to be read into the record. I would like to do that quickly. The first one is from Mrs. Dawn Kennedy at 2950 Oceanside Road. Yesterday, I received a letter concerning rezoning of the property next to the Oceanside Jewish Center between Brower and Oceanside Road. Of course, we would like to be able to attend this meeting on Tuesday, February 23rd at 10 a.m. However, work during the day and cannot take the time off of work, especially with short notice. Like most people, our work hours have been drastically affected and hit so hardly due to the pandemic. That said, this situation is very important to our Oceanside community and we need to be heard. My personal opinion that a meeting such like this should be made during evening hours when more community members may be able to attend. I would like to note that I have been living on Oceanside Road across the street from this property for 27 years. As I am sure most people are aware, the traffic in this area has been getting more and more congested over the years. It is specifically bad during the weekday morning, afternoon hours as the kids are off to school and then as the kids are going home. This continues till about 6 p.m. when the traffic is at its worst with after-school activities. Weekdays are not the only issue. The traffic can be very bad Saturday, Sunday, when sometimes the traffic can be at a dead stop in front of my house. Can't imagine how it will worsen with 40 additional employees and visitors coming in and out of this location daily. Then add in the school and congregation from the OJC on a daily basis. This will be a huge issue. This does not even take into account the religious holidays where their parking lot is filled to bursting, as are all available parking spaces lots on the nearby blocks. The traffic situation is well known. I can't understand why it is even a consideration to add this zoning to rezoning to our community. There will not be enough parking spaces for the two buildings. It is very hard as it is to get into my driveway with the normal traffic and people parked along the road. There have been plenty of times where I was not able to leave my driveway until someone came out of the OJC and moved their car. Cannot imagine how this will worsen with the rezoning that is proposed. My hope is that you have the traffic and parking situation analyzed before making a decision to add a new commercial building to this community. In my honest opinion, that if you have analyzed, you will see that rezoning is not appropriate for our community, which is already overcrowded with traffic. It is my wish that you read this email aloud on the February 23rd meeting. I believe those considering this rezoning should hear from someone that lives with the overwhelming traffic on a daily basis and is a long-standing member of the Oceanside community. Thank you for your attention. And then I also have emails from a Mr. and Mrs. Salzberg, a Teresa D'Amato, a James Zafuto, and a Jiriz K. And they all have similar questions, so I'm going to start with their questions and we'll go from there. And I also just want to say a thank you to Mr. Benesso. I know he's made himself available to many of the residents that have called with questions and concerns, so thank you very much for that. I guess I'll start with, let's see, first question that has come, has been in a lot of the emails, is a parking variance in that location is unacceptable. OJC fills their parking lot, members park on the neighboring streets several times a year. Adding a new structure limits the already crowded parking situation. So I guess one of the biggest questions that everyone has is about parking. I know you said that there's going to be 134 parking spots shared between the proposed assisted living and the OJC. What are the spots right now?
I don't know the number of spots presently. Okay. I can tell you that there will be a parking variance required because the way and I'll have Mr. Lenahan come up and address this as the expert, but in terms of the number of parking spaces required, the building code requires, first on the religious facility, they have to look at every space in the religious facility occupied at the same time, as if it was being used all simultaneously. That's the way the building department does it. That's the safest way to do it. When that never actually occurs. You never have simultaneous occupation of the entire building at the same time. So that generates an unrealistically high parking requirement. With the assisted living facility, there's a standard that applies of either one space per every 4 beds, which in this case would be 120 beds, it would be 40 spaces, or 1 space per every 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. That we have almost 97,000 square feet, so that requires 97 parking spaces. So the difference between the two is drastic.
Right.
But you're required to apply the higher, even though the bed count is actually, and I think Mr. Lenahan will support this, the bed count is actually more indicative of true parking demand. But nonetheless, that requires 97 parking spaces. Then add to that 1 space per every 4 employees, and we've indicated that at any given time there would be no more than 40 employees present. So that's another 10 spaces. So the parking requirement for the assisted living facility is 107 spaces, albeit if you went by the bed count, it would be 50 spaces. So that's a significant difference. And as I said, Mr. Lenahan would testify that the bed count is the more indicative number.
Okay.
So as much as we are asking for what looks like a very large parking variance, as noted by Mr. Lenahan, both the parking demand, the actual parking demand of the diminished activity at the OJC, and the actual parking demand of the assisted living facility will be more than accommodated by the 136 spaces being provided.
Okay, so the 134 parking spots would be for both. So if we just looked into the future and proposed and took into consideration the proposed variance that would go in front of the zoning board, not this board, there was 134, so that would leave, and I know we have to take into consideration the beds, that would only leave 27 parking spots for use by the OJC.
Theoretically, yes, but
Okay.
the fact of the matter is, and we will make this a condition of any approval, and we will put this in a restrictive covenant, that we've already talked to the OJC, and we've already told Mr. Weinraub for the assisted living site, that the only way this works is if you agree to a cross-parking agreement, so that on the busy times for the OJC, they have access to all the spaces that are situated on the assisted living facility.
Right.
Vice versa. There's never really a time at the assisted living facility that they would need anything more than what's on their property, but in the event of a major visiting occurrence there, they would be able to use the additional spaces that are on the OJC. So
Okay.
that would be a condition of the approval, and that would be incorporated into a restrictive covenant that would run with the land.
Okay, and just a question, I guess, for the town attorney, just so I understand. If the new proposed, once this was to go to the zoning board, there would be a presumption that they would be adjoining the parking spaces. So I guess my question is, the proposed development for the assisted living would have to go for a parking variance. Would the OJC also have to go for a parking variance, or is that considered one application to the zoning board?
Councilman, if they are separate owners proposing to be on separate parcel, they will make their own separate requests to the zoning board for their own separate parking deficiencies.
Okay.
Just to amplify on that, I agree with what Mr. Regina said. We would make the application to the Board of Appeals for both, make them a joint application, and present the case to the Board of Appeals with the indication that there would be the joint parking agreement, the shared parking agreement, so that the needs of the OJC are accommodated by the available parking on the assisted living facility site and vice versa.
Okay, so I guess I'll go to the next question because it kind of leads into that. So one of the questions that I would say a high 90 percentile of the residents that have contacted either myself or the supervisor, one of their concerns is that if there is a zoning change approved, and then you, would take go to the zoning board for the variances. Let's say the variances aren't approved. The concern is what is going to be built on that parcel.
Mr. Councilman, that question actually came up in my conversations with Ms. Lipton, who's a community representative who reached out to us through your office. And what I advised her is what I'll advise you. If this board were to grant the rezoning, it doesn't grant a rezoning for any business use on the property. It grants the rezoning specific to the proposed assisted living facility use that would be on the parcel. And not only just that use, but the actual site plan that's been submitted and that would ultimately be submitted during site plan approval. Because as I mentioned, the site plan will still be a work in progress while we're talking with the community, and if we need to make some tweaks here or there, that'll come up during site plan review. But the bottom line is, if you approve this rezoning, It'll be approved specifically for an assisted living facility with 119 beds, with the number of parking spaces that we're proposing, and so on and so forth. You will require us, as you do with every change of zone, to prepare a declaration of restrictive covenants that included in that will be that requirement. And in addition to that, it'll be the requirements that there be no catering at the OJC. It'll be other requirements imposed as a result of the agreements that we make with the community and based on conditions that this board feels are reasonable. That restrictive covenant will get recorded, will be signed by the property owners, both the OJC and the owner of the assisted living facility. It'll be recorded in the office of the county clerk. Okay. The importance of that is that that makes it, quote unquote, run with the land. And when it runs with the land, a future buyer who buys the property has legal notice of these restrictions on the property. So somebody can't come in, buy the property, and come to the town and say, oh, well, I didn't know those restrictions were on here. You should give me a pass. Take those restrictions off and let me develop whatever. Right. Can't do that. They have legal knowledge by it being recorded in the county clerk's office. Let the buyer beware at that point. He would have legal notice of the fact that there are restrictions on this property that can only be lifted by this board acting again on a new application that would come before it with notice, with public hearing.
So I guess that's really been one of the biggest concerns that I've heard from Oceanside neighbors. There's many that are here, there's many that are home. So I'm going to actually take that one step further, and I just want to put on the record that if this change of zoning was to be adopted, now I'm one vote out of everyone up here, but if the zoning at some point was to be approved, and then this project was to go to the zoning board and those variances were denied, I would immediately ask the supervisor to place on the calendar to change the zoning back to what it is today. And I want to make sure that the people that are here from Oceanside know that, because I think that's one of their biggest concerns. And we've heard it, you know, from the dozens of emails, from community meetings. So that's something that, again, I'm not saying that this will be approved, but if the zoning were to be approved, that is something that I would entertain immediately, and I would hope my colleagues on the town board would welcome it to protect the Oceanside residents.
That's a totally reasonable position for you and the town board to take, and it's specifically because this project only works if the parking variance is granted. So if for some reason the Board of Appeals did not see fit to grant the parking variance, then it would behoove the town board to invalidate the prior zone change.
Okay. There's also a question here regarding the height, and I know you went over in your presentation. Is the proposed structure, is it taller than any of the adjacent properties?
Let me call upon Mr.
Okay.
Mina, who's
Perfect.
our architect, to address the height. I did mention that the peak of the highest point of the building is some 44 feet high. That's an architectural feature that, as you'll hear from Mr. Mamina, we can remove. We could, if we chose to, we could actually do a flat roof, which would bring the total height of the building down to about 34 feet, which is significantly lower.
I think their concerns are trying to meet the aesthetics of the community.
Yeah, and to that end, we don't want to bring it down as much as possible, but leave an ugly building. Flat roof is not the most attractive building sometimes, especially if it's next to residential property. So I'll let Mr. Mamina expand on that, but there are certain things that he has been looking at to address that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Benesso.
Good morning, members of the board. David Mamina, architect, H2M, Architects and Engineers, 538 North Hollow Road in Melville, New York. That certainly was a question that was asked many times. And, you know, as Mr. Benesso had said, the height of the building that was advertised at 44 feet 6 inches, I made a little dot on the site plan on the right. It's not going to be on the board's drawings, but if you'd like, I can go on up and point to it. It's a single point, which is strictly an architectural element that's in the complete center of the building in its back. So what we did and are proposing to do with that, if it's the pleasure of the board and the community, is we can drop that down, or we could take that off. It's in the middle of a courtyard, so it would be something that would not be able to be seen by anyone unless they were standing, in that courtyard, and looking all the way up at the top of the building. But again, it's one single tangent point like we learned about in geometry. Okay, a single point. And we do have there some amended color renderings that would show that we're going to propose that would still maintain what we feel would be an acceptable compromise in order to help the community to see that the height of that building drop down. And the other thing that we're proposing is that right now we have a sloping roof on the first 5 feet of the building. So we can drop that height down to 38 feet 11 inches. Now, that's a 4-foot drop from where it is now. And again, that's something that's set all the way back. The major thing that the community will see is the eave of the building. And we do have a rendering that shows the eave because all of those roofs slope away from the eave. And that eave height is now proposed at 33 feet 10 inches. So that when you're looking at the building, that's what you're going to see when you drive by. That's what you're going to see if you're walking down the street. And it's similar to any house from that perspective. Now, Mr. Despotilio asked a very good question regarding how does that relate to what the zoning would be for a house. The maximum zoning height that's permitted for a house in the town of Hempstead is 30 feet. So 33 foot 10, for the record, I'm holding my hand up at the podium. I mean, we're talking about something that's about 6 inches higher than the podium.
So we're looking at a 4-foot difference.
You're looking about a 4-foot difference. And,
Okay.
And that was what we've dropped down enough so that we could get a functional building.
So just to put out, so you dropped down from, what was the original number?
The original number that we had to the maximum point was 44 foot 6 inches. And dropping that element out, we can bring that down then to 38 feet, 11 inches, which gives us a height drop of about 5 feet.
Okay.
If I can just add Mr. Mamina comment on one other thing. Mr. Mamina, you talked about what a residence is the maximum height for. For a religious use building, if they were to not do this project and the OJC was to build another building on their site in association with their facility, what is a religious use building permitted to be in terms of height?
Right, the religious use building is permitted to be 60 feet or 4 stories. So, I mean, we are significantly lower, than that. One other thing that was brought up, by the board and correctly, and it is illustrated on the drawings, though, but if you were to look at the dotted line that shows the footprint of where the synagogue currently is, we're removing approximately 3/5 of that synagogue so that it would contain strictly a worship space and about 6 classrooms. So that very large school and very large synagogue that is there now in that part of town will now be served, by a small worship space and a
So just to put it into simple sheer numbers, what is the difference of occupancy now from the proposed plan?
Let me see if I have,
Just on the synagogue portion.
if I have that here, I should. Okay. Okay, the synagogue is being changed from 96,000 square feet to 40,821 in terms of its area. And let me see if I have the table regarding the use, because the use is it's complicated because every part of the synagogue, has different uses. And what I would say, I have the proposed here, but honestly, I don't have the existing, but that's something that I could easily provide to the board.
So the square footage from the synagogue and the classrooms, what it is right now, to the proposed synagogue and classrooms, you're cutting the square foot by over 50%. So, which would mean the occupancy would be at least half.
Yes, that would be very reasonable.
Councilman, I have a question. Do you mind?
Go for it.
So at the current facility, there is a large catering operation, is that correct?
I'm going to ask Mr. Berman to comment on that. I just want to make sure that the answer is accurate rather than my feel.
Yes, my name is Joel Cutler. I'm also a current board member and, like Mr. Gurman, a former president of OJC.
Yes, so there's currently a large catering operation there, is that correct?
That is correct.
And approximately, what is the occupancy for a catered event at that site currently?
Currently, probably somewhere about 180 to 200 attendees.
And would it be safe to say that it generates approximately 100 cars per function at the site?
Correct. We will no longer have, when this project is done,
I'm talking about now.
I'm sorry. Now, probably somewhere about 80 to 100 cars.
Okay, and if the zoning change were approved and the variance was granted, you would be eliminating on a significant number of nights the use of the catering facility and would be eliminating traffic of approximately 80 cars in and out on almost a daily basis, correct?
Currently, we probably only have about 15 parties a year, maybe 17.
Yeah, I know with COVID, but I mean before that.
No, before then. The catering facilities have decreased significantly over the last decade. As a conservative temple, we are a kosher caterer. The caterer there is a kosher caterer as the entire facility, and the demand for kosher catering has diminished considerably over the last 10 to 20 years. So the number of parties we've had probably in the last 3 to 5 years is probably in the realm of 15 to 17 parties.
Okay. But under the new proposal,
Under the new proposal, we will not have a separate catering facility. And what we're intending to have is more in the realm of warming kitchens or much smaller kitchens that wouldn't accommodate a full-fledged catering facility.
I guess this is probably a little bit premature, but it is a question that was asked. The residents in the immediate area are saying that there is landscaping, and they would like to know what steps you guys have gone through to preserve the greenery that's on the parcel right now.
we do not have a formal landscape plan prepared at this time. That's something that I mentioned to Ms. Lipton when we spoke. But that said, we're prepared to work with them with regard to fencing, with regard to plantings, with regard to preserving what can be preserved. Obviously, if a building is going in a location where a tree is, the tree's got to go.
Right.
The tree can be relocated, or a new tree can be planted elsewhere. But we are, and Mr. Weinraub has indicated that he's prepared to accommodate all reasonable requests on this.
And I think those are all items that could be part of the restrictive covenant when we, if there were to move forward. Okay. And just really the last question, which is come up over and over again, and then I guess we'll turn it over to the residents. But, they've asked tax implications, and the answer that I've given, I'm not an expert in tax law, but obviously this entire parcel is currently off the tax rolls for religious use So that would obviously change if there was a change of zoning and that there, anything was erected on the site.
Correct. Presently, the entire site is off the tax rolls. The portion of property that would be retained by the OJC would remain off the tax rolls. But the larger of the two parcels, the parcel with the assisted living facility, will be back on the tax rolls. Now, in addition to that, Mr. Weinraub is not making any application. He is not filing for any IDA or pilot for this property. An end user might come in and seek to do that, but that's not something that's on the table presently.
Okay.
But even worst case scenario, if somebody was to come in and do that, taxes will start being paid right off the bat, because right now the taxes are at zero. So it'll still be a net benefit. Even if a pilot was to be put in place, there'll still be a net benefit, and it's a steady increase. And anybody who obtains IDA relief, what many people don't know is that they are prohibited from seeking any kind of tax reductions over the course of the IDA pilot.
Okay. So just to reiterate that, because that was probably the last question that was part of all these emails, there is no intent of Mr. Weiner to be submitting an application to either the county or the town IDA. Okay. Supervisor, unless when the residents come up, chime in. But.
Well, Mr. Vanessa, thank you. Obviously, I'm actually excited that you're committing to, if you take a tree down, maybe you're planting another one. I'm a big tree hugger. So that's very, very nice. We have a number of residents who have come here today, and I said online, so it'd be great if your team can stand on by maybe to answer them those questions. So thank you very much. With that, we're going to start with a number of our residents that are in-house today, and we will start with Mr. Gran. Mr. Gran, good morning. Nope, sorry. It's good afternoon now, but I appreciate your patience. You're a good sport. If you give me a name and address for the record, I appreciate it.
My name's Jeff Gran. I'm at 3943 Jane Lane in Oceanside. Good morning.
Morning.
I have nothing prepared. It's just a newspaper and some notes, but I do have, I'm not against developing the property, and I do understand OJC's concern. I belong to Temple of Voter, and I know that memberships are down, and I understand everybody needs money. However, I do not think that this is the best use for the property. Probably my biggest concern is I only live about a mile or two down the road, and Oceanside Road has become a secondary Long Beach Road. So as the traffic on Long Beach Road has increased over the years, Oceanside Road has become a disaster, and it's certainly bad when school is open, which is 9 months a year, and I think that's my biggest concern. Getting out of my neighborhood takes a half an hour to go 10 blocks, so this can't help it. The other thing I want to say, by the way, there's no sign on the property in terms of zoning change or anything like that, which I believe is supposed to be there, because there's a lot of people here from Oceanside. I believe there'd be a lot more.
Supervisor, if I just can, I'm sorry, I'll have, the town attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those yellow signs are specific to cases that are going in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals, not the town board.
So yeah, those big signs that
Just say, there's a town.
Right. I think, they were put in wisely a number of years ago by a former supervisor, but those are for the Zoning Board of Appeals cases, not for these.
Oh, okay. And if I can make one more comment about that, I live a mile down the road, so I don't get a notice about something like this. I mean, to me, that should be changed, because this is not like my neighbor putting up a fence. It's a development. I do have one concern, because the gentleman before me was speaking, and he said, you asked about the taxes, and he said he wasn't going to IDA, but he didn't know what. He's just a developer. Is he not running this facility? The people that are building it, are they not running this facility? Or they intend on selling it, or what is?
Mr. Vanessa, if you could try and address that.
I don't particularly like that, but I don't know how it works at other assisted facilities if they build them and run them. But if he's just a developer, a lot of these things that say we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this, may not come to fruition in terms of parking or other things. And lastly, my feeling is it really is a residential street. And like I said, the traffic is it's really bad there. To just drop this huge building there in the middle of all these homes, it doesn't add to the fabric of the community, in my opinion. It changes the fabric. And we always talk about quality of life, and it doesn't aid anything here. So, and I think I'm done.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Grant. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate
Thank you,
taking
sir.
the time here today. Thank you very much. And like I said, you know what, Councilman D'Esposito is going to try and keep the residents informed with everything else going on. But you know, your comments are invaluable. So thank you for taking the time.
Appreciate it. Everybody stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Next, I have Anu Kikas. Hi, Ms. Kikas. If you give your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Anu Kikas. I live on Pine Street in Oceanside since the 1950s. Addressing the traffic issue, it's not only, it's been a problem because I have had on holidays people from OJC park in my driveway. It only happened once, but it has happened, so it is an issue. But more so than the parking problem is the speeding problem. Oceanside Road, as my former colleague mentioned, it's horrendous. In the past 8 months, I have witnessed 2 accidents. One was on Fairview. The car did a fender bender on Oceanside Road as he didn't look properly, and he crashed into somebody going down on Oceanside Road. The other accident was a gentleman was speeding down Pine Street so fast that when he stopped on Oceanside Road, his car flipped over onto the roof. And so speeding is a huge issue. And with the addition of additional traffic parking spaces, I just don't know how this is going to be adequately managed. I think the community will suffer, not only with the additional cars, but like on Bellevue, nobody stops at the stop sign. They have 2 stop signs on Bellevue, and people, they still speed by.
Ma'am, just a comment on the speeding. I will make sure that I reach out to Inspector Molds from the 4th Precinct today and ask her, if possible, to increase some patrols along the Oceanside Road area.
A block from my house is a speed limit of 30 miles. I would venture that most of the cars go 40, 45, and maybe even higher.
I'll relay your concerns to the precinct so that they could address it.
Right, right. And my main concern with the OGC site that they're proposing is the fact that it's 3 levels. I think there are other assisted living developments in Oceanside, and all of them are single story. Why is it that they're allowed to go to 3 levels? And 119 beds, that's quite a lot for that proposed site. I think it makes a difference in terms of the building, how it fits into the community. And I just think it's overdevelopment. It reeks of overdevelopment. And the other problem that I have is, now I forgot what I was going to say. Well, 3 stories. Oh, the main issue, I watched on TV where they talked about the green applications that are being now used in buildings. Are there any that are applied to this site? They talked about the landscaping, but what about using the roof of the building for some kind of a greenery development? Because air quality is an issue in Oceanside. Several times a year, if I go out the back door and I smell the dump it overtakes me. I'm a little bit sensitive. I have allergies.
I get you, Ms. Kikas, and the time's up for the speaker, but maybe Mr. Benesso or the developer, is there, you know, as she's raised a number of concerns, just a quick, was there any consideration of any sort of, you know what, solar uses or anything you're exploring in that development, just so we could let her know? If there are. Yeah. And Ms. Kikas, I will tell you, you know, we don't know what sort of programs are going to be running down in Washington, D.C. in the next couple of months. So, you know, I sort of follow you with your passion on looking for some initiatives. But like I said, we appreciate you coming in here today. You know, I know Councilman Diaz-Pazito's, you know, monitoring every single comment. We're taking it all. It's part of the record. And like I said, you know, this is a hearing to give residents like yourself and all the others the opportunity to express their concerns and their, you know what, either their support, their concerns, their hesitation, and we appreciate that very, very much for you being here today for that.
Well, I hope you take into consideration the fact that it's 3 levels. 2 levels is already excessive.
That's why you're here, and when you speak, you know what, we're listening, and that's what it's all about. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just next speaker is a Joyce Lipton. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon, Ms. Lipton. If you give your name and address for the record.
Hi, sure. I'm Joyce Lipton. My address is 2948 Alon Street in Oceanside.
Okay.
May I proceed?
Yep. There you go.
Thank you. My corner, by the way, is Brower Avenue. So even though I'm about a mile away, the traffic, even there, when the school lets out, and other, and the hospital ambulances are coming, it will take 20 minutes for me to get from Brower Avenue to the edge of town. But I'm not really here about me. I'm here about the town where I've lived for 35 years. I do have a question for Oceanside Jewish Center, which I would like to, a response to after I complete my presentation, which is I would like to know whether there has been congressional approval as required by the Religious Corporation Law of the sale of the property to the LLP that was formed to build the assisted living. If you see, now getting back to the main issue, in part it's traffic, in part it's parking. There are people here who border the property on the south. The way the assisted living is being built, they will front the yards of that property and come very close to that property, 20 feet, I believe. They will be now looking out of their backyard to a 3-story structure that really hits them in the face, as opposed to the trees and the fence and some parking that now exists. This is a devastating change for these homeowners who never entertained the possibility that a 3-story structure was going to be built right next to their backyards. This does change the face of where they're living, as well as the neighborhood. And it's nice that Mr. Nelson has looked at other assisted living facilities in residential areas. But in this particular case, every space is unique. And these homeowners will be affected financially as well as aesthetically. They will no longer have the privacy that they have. People from the assisted living facility will be able to look in to these people's yards. If they want to sell their houses, I cannot believe that it would appreciate as a result of having this structure so close to them. And as I said, they have taken pictures of their backyards to show you. In addition, there is nothing in Oceanside in that area that is 3 stories. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Benesso and the builder, they are trying to work with us, and they're trying to lower the height. They're trying to make the building look a little better. But there are certain things that cannot be fixed, and that is how it's going to look on the south side. And three-story structure that doesn't exist in Oceanside, save for a couple of schools, but even the high school down the road is 2 stories. This will be the only three-story structure, and it is going to make a difference in the community. I can tell you that based upon the almost 2,000 people who signed a petition against the
Ms.
change.
Lipton, we're there, and that's what I said. That's why it's imperative, and we're delighted you came down here to express it. This is what it's about. It's about hearing what the residents have, and we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. And as I said, we've gotten emails from residents. We've had residents come down. We have residents on the computer, and your feedback's very important to us. So we appreciate you coming down here today and keeping us aware of what your concerns are with the project.
Are my 3 minutes up?
It's 3 minute time. There's a 3-minute limit here. All right. Thank you. But maybe, Mr. Benesso, you could follow up with Mrs. Lipton on her question, if you would, please. I think that would be, if you could make that commitment to us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Lipton.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next speaker I have is a Norman Chan. Good afternoon, Mr. Chan. If you would please give your name and address for the record.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Norman Chan, C-H-A-N, and I reside at 2876 Sylvan Court in Oceanside.
Is that Sylvan Court?
S-Y-L-V-A-N.
Okay, no, okay, I'm just looking at the map. Just getting my visual there. Thank you.
Great. So first of all, thank you for allowing me to speak here today. We've been Oceanside residents for about 7 years now. My wife, my family, and I moved out here. We took a look at houses. We wanted to when we were looking for houses, we wanted what everyone else wanted. We wanted good neighborhoods, good schools, good neighbors, which we happily found. And you know what? We are very happy where we live right now. And that's the reason why I'm here today. When I found out about the request to rezone the area and looked at the proposed drawings of it, we had some major concerns. So where I live right now on Sylvan Court, my backyard is directly adjacent to the OJC property. That's where the rezoning currently under consideration right now. So when we were looking at a house, we researched the zoning of the area. We looked at everything else, and never in a million years did we imagine that this complete area will change so quickly. It's a big residential neighborhood. There's a strip mall nearby, a high school nearby, but aside from that, it's all single-family houses. And we feel that this particular rezoning will have drastic impacts to the community. First of all, I guess I'll speak from a personal level. When I look out my bedroom window, I see my back view is of the OJC, primarily the parking lot, an area of trees, a nicely manicured lawn. I have some photos here of my view from my house, which I would like to leave for everyone for the public record. So we're looking at the plans. It looks like a 3-story building is going to be proposed here, 25 feet from my fence line, based on those drawings. So when we look out the window from the house, when the kids and I are in the backyard, we will be looking up at this large, sizable building. So that's the first concern. Number two, any building in that area diminishes our privacy. Like kids are in the backyard playing, we'll have people from the second, third floor facility looking down at that area. So any semblance of privacy that we'll have is gone at that point. But there's even more to this. Looking at the proposed drawings, there seems to be some type of garbage storage area that will be right along the fence line of my neighbor's house, right next door to me. That will have some drastic impacts as well to us. And these are just aesthetic issues. I know the speaker prior to me mentioned the financial aspects of it. In my opinion, I believe that financially, if this building were to be built there, it would drastically impact our property values over there. When we looked at houses, it was great, nice open area in the back. I can't imagine a future buyer looking at the same thing and valuing it the same way. And these are just my own personal issues. My neighbors will probably have similar concerns. I've spoken to many of my neighbors. From a community perspective, I echo the same sentiments: traffic, quality of life, changing the character of the neighborhood. You're plopping a 3-story building in this area, in an area that's primarily single-family houses. So, and these are some of the concerns that we have about the adverse impact.
Mr. Chen, as I see, I'm looking at my map, and you are a budding neighbor. Have you had communications with the developers directly about any of these concerns, or?
I have not. We attended one community meeting a little over a year ago where we first learned about the project, but there's been no further communication.
Okay. Obviously, these are, legitimate concerns about, your privacy and your height and what the aesthetics are and what you're looking for and the location of I guess, disposal. You said that there was a refuse there. What was it? Your comment you thought was next to either you or your neighbor's property?
I believe there was a refuse area on one of the drawings, one of the proposed drawings.
Okay. Mr. Benesso, maybe you can, answer or try and alleviate. And look, and I would say to you, this is just a hearing, just so you know, and I want you to, that's why I said it's important for you to be here, but there's also the fact that there has to be a line of communication, and that's why I said that's part of the process. But we're hearing you loud and clear with your concerns, and I said you're abutting, as your neighbors are too. So this, I understand the impact on it. But Mr. Benesso, if you could address a couple of those right away.
With regard to the refuse container, that's a landscape container, it's fully refrigerated, but we could find another location for that. We had actually I'd spoken to the client about that and to Ms. Lipton about that. That would not be a difficult thing to do to relocate the location of the container.
Mr. Benesso, is there any way you could provide your contact information? So that, if there's any other concerns, perhaps that you guys can open up a line of communication, like you did with Ms. Lipton, to assist the resident?
Absolutely. When I had my call with Ms. Lipton last week, she asked if the neighbors on Sylvan could contact me. I said, absolutely, please provide them with my contact information, but I'll be happy to give Mr. Chan.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chen.
All right, thank you. I have some photos here I would like to leave.
Thank you. Yeah, whoever was next, I don't know.
That's fine. Next speaker I have is a Brett Helm.
Brett Halem.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Halem. How you doing? If you give your name and address for the record.
Yes, Brett Halem, 2883 Sylvan Court. I live right next to Mr. Chan.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said because I agree with everything he said, and I do agree with a lot of what Ms. Lipton said. I've been there 20 years. My kids were bar mitzvahed at OJC, my twins. I love OJC. I'm sad that it's going. I am frightened and horrified that I have to look at I'm going to have to look at a 3-floor building in my backyard. I just retired from federal law enforcement after 28 years. My dream is to sit in my backyard and enjoy a cocktail, enjoy myself. I don't think I'm going to have that opportunity for 2 more years with this building going on. I have no objection to building. I have no objection to what's going on. But I do have an objection to the enormity that's going to impact this neighborhood. I had some buildings alongside of my residence. About 10 years ago, they built a couple 3 families, and I had no objection to that, and that was fine. But you have to understand, when you're doing such enormous construction next to a residential house, there's going to be a pest infestation like you wouldn't believe. There's a forest behind our house. When you look at those pictures, I have the same pictures of Mr. Chan, you'll see it's a little bit of a forest. In the summer, this is totally green. You can't see the OJC, okay? And there are live animals living there. There are nests in there. There are possum. There are probably rats. I can only imagine the pest issues that we're going to have on Sylvan Court once that construction goes down. I am totally concerned and really upset about the prospect of privacy. Obviously, whatever the builder wants to do, I would love to communicate with them. I'm open to that, for sure. I'm open to, to some building. I just think the enormity of it, a 3-floor in that area. You guys have, if you have the time, if you don't make a decision now, take a look at the area. Look at the density. It's like the old saying, putting a fat guy in a skinny coat. It's a sausage. It's not going to work. It's not going to look good. And I'm not going to repeat anything else that anybody else said, and I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate you hearing me out, and I'm very emotional about this. And I hope you guys will hear from more of the community. I think a lot more of them wanted to attend and didn't because of, what's going on, obviously. And I thank you for hearing me out.
Well, first off, congratulations, but thank you for your service to our nation.
Absolutely.
And look, you about the property. That's what these hearings are for, is to hear residents like yourself. And Mr. Benesso I'm gonna ask him respectfully to take your contact information and have that discussion. You know what? You have legitimate concerns, and like I said, we're all here listening to them. That's the prospect of why we have these meetings, and rightfully so. But this is just a hearing, and you need to remember that because we're hearing you. All right.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Stay safe.
Drop these photos off?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take them, make them part of the record.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next speaker I have down is a Paul Schell. I'm going to Paul's first, and then I know there's Paul Jr. So I'm going to go Paul Senior because I'm a junior too. So so we just go. If you just give your name and address for the record.
My name's Paul Schell, Senior. I live at 2941 Oceanside Road. I've been a resident of Oceanside since April 2010, and upon looking for a home, we looked at the new structure that was created in the cul-de-sac, the southwest corner of the proposed building. The key reason why we purchased that property was the fact that we had the OJC as a neighbor. Not from a religious connection, but from the fact that it was like park-like grounds. And to have a quiet neighbor, to have use of such a beautiful space as well, just from visually. My home is also my staycation. I don't get to go away, not just for COVID, but for the fact that I use my home in that regards. Having a 3-story building proposed, and if it got it permitted to be erected, brings so much more than just the aesthetics of it. We talked about traffic and such, but did we actually perform a traffic study and did a car clicking study at any time? Have we looked at emissions? The National Center for Biotechnology Information published a abstract regarding health issues related to increased emissions. Having idling cars, idling trucks, emergency vehicles that are obviously going to be associated to the structure, what is that going to do for us? All the other pollutants, being a facility that's going to have to cook for residents, are they going to have ventilation? What kind of noise is that going to bring? Waste management, what kind of infestation is that going to bring? Currently there already are raccoons living back there, possum living back there. You do see mice back there. It's just a natural area. What other environmental impacts are there going to be? Well, I don't know if you're aware, but every year there are blue herring that nest there. And they've been doing that for the 10 years that I've been there, and I'm sure they've been doing it for 100 years before. It is a continual right that they come back every year. They raise their young. They hunt in that field. We watch them do it. It's amazing. In addition to that, there's a proposed generator that would border my neighbor and my yard. That would be a large nuisance. The security lighting that's going to come with the building. The OJC right now has lighting that's already pretty intrusive to my bedroom, but now to have this building so much closer and so much higher, that security lighting is going to make it daytime all day long. My wife is a public first responder. She needs to sleep. She needs to be able to go to work and well rested, because otherwise she's taking people's lives in hand.
Just so, and I know you said you lived on Oceanside Road. What's the closest cross street there, just so I have my...
Outside of my cul-de-sac is Bellevue.
Okay. I'm just looking at the map. And like I said, look, as I said to all the other neighbors, this is just a hearing where you raise either your support, your Does that, or your concerns? And as I said, these are rightful concerns that you're bringing forth here, and we appreciate you coming down and talking to us. But more importantly, it's also, again, and I asked Mr. Benesso, to get the contact and have the discussion. Like I said, it's just a hearing, and that's why I said.
Very poor.
No, I know that, but listen, we want to hear what your concerns are too, and that's why I said, and we appreciate you coming down.
To receive a certified letter Saturday night, I had to get the original letter from another neighbor. I personally made copies and walked it around to all the different houses. I went on to Sylvain Court. I did, at least on Sunnyside Road, Oceanside Road, and Broward.
And obviously,
many people that said we weren't aware.
You've done a good job because, like I said, we've gotten a lot of emails. We've got a lot of residents that came here. We have some online as well. So it's good. But it is, like I said, you coming here, expressing your feelings, your concerns, your hesitations, and having, and listening to it. And we're doing that as well as the developer is too. And that's part of the process. So we do appreciate you coming down here today. And any of the other documents you've sent in, we'll make it part of the record.
Some of my direct questions, though, has a traffic study been conducted? Has there been car clicking? Has there been looked at emissions?
Mr. Benesso, can you answer any of those?
You heard from our traffic experts. They've done an analysis on the property based upon not only the International Transportation Engineering, Institute of Transportation Engineering numbers, but they've also applied the numbers that they've taken from other sites to the parking demand for this. They've also looked at the specific area and seen what it is. So I think you have.
But that's parking related, not emissions related. That's not.
Emissions is not traffic.
But emissions come from traffic.
The environmental impact is minimal considering other uses that are going on.
Yeah, but concentrated cubic feet of emissions in one given area can create health-related issues. It's published.
No, and that's what I said to you. You're raising concerns for us to hear, and we appreciate you coming down and bringing it to our attention. And like I said, it's a hearing today, and you've got to remember, and we're hearing you.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to before your son comes out. Your son has got to do a wipe down of the mic, so just give it a second there. Okay. Paul, the nice thing's going to be I'm going to get your name right, so it's Paul Shell Jr. So this one was teed up for me.
Name and address. All right, everybody, how you doing today? I just had a few quick questions. I'll try not to take the whole 3 minutes, but tacking on to what my father said before, what were the dates for that traffic study that was taking place? I don't know if you can answer.
Okay. If either Mr. Nelson or Mr. Benesso knows the dates you did those study. Mr. Lanahan?
Do we have a mic for him?
If you can hear him, so we're good.
The traffic picture that we took a snapshot of the site operations was done just in the last couple of weeks based on reference materials that we used on all the projects. The current site plan and projects that we've done over the last several decades has matched up something else.
Just personal knowledge. What did it encompass? Not just a weekday, but weekends as well.
We looked at weekday morning, weekday afternoon traffic generation, Saturday peak, and the same as well.
Okay.
So with that said, I personally did not see.
Excuse me, Speaker, just part. Supervisor, we've been notified that when the applicant's representatives are speaking, because they don't have access to a mic, people outside in the lobby and also in the webinar cannot hear the answers to the questions. There's a microphone available here. Since Mr. Benesso answers the majority of the questions, perhaps he wouldn't mind coming down here.
Or is it, if it's a wireless, maybe we can just give him one he can turn on and off.
That's a question for
Bobby. Can.
Yeah.
And Mr. Benesso, I would just remind you that if you can mute it when you're not speaking to answer it. No problem. There you go. Thank you, Bobby. Well, so why don't we, to be fair to those residents watching online, there was the question regarding the traffic study that was responded to, and I inquired if it was encompassed not only weekdays but weekends, and the answer was accordingly. If you could just maybe speaking to the, Bill, if you could hold the mic over to him a little bit so you can hear him.
Yes, Patrick Linehan. The traffic numbers that I cited are weekday AM and PM peak, as well as Saturday for generation and parking.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then Mr. Shell, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. All right, so with that said, living there, walking that neighborhood, I personally never saw, like a car ticker. I encourage you to really place one there and get an understanding for that traffic. Because when you come down Brower Avenue at 235, it is a madhouse of cars for kids getting out of high school. I know it from years of living there. 3 o'clock on Oceanside Road, School 4 is getting out, another madhouse. It is very difficult for that community to just travel. Secondly, regarding the 3-story issue that, many have already stated, just understand our own high school, which is 2 blocks away, is not 3 stories. There's the only building that is close to this proposed site that is above 3 stories is the hospital itself. I am not opposed to developing something on this site. I actually think there should be something developed on this site. With that said, just make it appropriate to the community. There's no reason why a 3-story building, especially an assisted living, is needed there. On Atlantic Avenue, there's already an assisted living facility proposed to be built. That is, I would say, a half a mile away. Just take into account us as a community.
Listen, absolutely. And as I said to you, Dad, that's why we're delighted when residents
You're not
come
making
down.
a decision today, but just,
I hear you loud and clear. I do. Okay?
That's all I got. Thank you.
It's very kind. Thank you very much for coming down, and thank you and your dad for your comments, all right? All right, stay safe. The next person in audience that I have listed to speak is a Sandro Shinin. They decline to speak. Okay. The next person I have here that is indicated to speak is Deborah Liata. That is not Deborah. Santoro, is that you? Santoro, I'm going to give you a little, since now you came up to the mic, you're stuck with us, Santoro. Deborah can go next. I'm going to have Santoro Liata, if I pronounced it correctly, if you give your name and address for the record.
It's Santoro Leota.
Okay.
My wife and I live across the street.
What's the address? Just right at the street.
2918 Oceanside Road.
Okay.
We live across the street for the last 30 years. I'm a resident of Oceanside for the last 42 years. My wife and I have raised 4 children in the Oceanside public schools. They all graduated the Oceanside High School. As it's kind of been referred to, it's literally around the block from the Jewish Center. Historically, I think we've been very good neighbors, and so has the Jewish Center. They had a variance about 10 years ago to make to build a 2-family house. So no problems. We live together well. Now honestly, it's absurd that anybody should be talking about building an assisted living across the street. The traffic, as everybody's told you, is horrendous. When we pull out of our driveway, we have to go south, go to Long Beach Road to go north, because there's just no way you could possibly do it. The school number 5 is across the street from the hospital. There's another elementary school south of the Jewish Center, where recently, 2-3 years ago, they put a stop sign to kind of slow people down. On some levels, it's inconceivable that anybody would be talking about developing the Jewish Center parking lot. 10, 12 years ago, they sold off a property south, and 4 one-family houses were built with a little cul-de-sac. Our son owned one of those houses for 10 years. Looking for something bigger, he bought a house in Oceanside, half a mile away. He used to live across the street. It's hard to try to come up with an argument because, honestly speaking, living across the street for the last 30 years, anybody who thought this would be a possibility, that you would have local people supporting it, needs help. It's my wife.
Hold on, wait, no, before I gotta follow the COVID rules here. Listen, first off, thank you very much for coming down. We appreciate you giving us, you're a neighbor right there. It's very important we hear from residents like yourself. So we appreciate giving your opinion and your thoughts on your concerns. Now I know that your wife's going to speak, but I'm going to ask that they just have to wipe it down. We just have the microphone before she speaks. Some COVID protocol. So just. There you go. Good afternoon. How are you? If you could just give your name and address to the record, and I'm sorry I pronounced your last name incorrectly. I'm terrible with this stuff.
Deborah Leota, 2918 Oceanside Road. We, as my husband attested to, we live directly across the street from the parking lot of the OJC. And I just want to attest to the traffic that everyone has been talking about. And I would like someone to explain to the board and all the residents here, what is the proposed entry and exit to this facility?
Okay, hold on. Mr. Benessa?
Yeah.
Sure. Currently, there is a signalized access, ingress and egress to the site on Oceanside, and there are two curb cuts on Broward. The one on Oceanside would remain essentially as.
Oh, hold on.
I think I'm back. Okay.
You're on.
That's going to get you to a traffic signal that will help you get in and out of the site, even in congested periods, without any trouble. On Broward, there's a sort of a standard access now, and then a smaller one. Excuse me, I shut off again. The two access points on Broward would be approved to town site standards, each of them wide enough for entry and exit and controlled by stop signs.
But Supervisor, just to follow up on that question. So just so I can picture this in my head, right now, if you're driving on Brower, there's a curb cut to go into a circle, and then there's a secondary curb cut to kind of go past the entrance and then into the back parking lot. So those would remain?
They would remain. If I can look, do we have a plan view up here?
No, you're out of luck there. Oh, maybe behind those boards.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, there's a larger and a smaller, call them curb cuts, driveways on Broward. Ultimately, when the OJC is right sized, let's call it, it opens up additional room for other improvements on the site, and we are proposing two curb cuts.
So two curb cuts, two additional curb cuts on Brower.
Well, to replace the two that are there now.
Okay.
Okay.
And then there would be the entrance that is currently existing on Oceanside Road?
Correct, and that's right here. That will remain, so anyone wishing to ingress and egress with the use of the traffic signal would do so from here.
All right. Mrs. Leota, does that answer your question?
It certainly raises major concerns, because that's where you're going to get all this congestion. And that's right in front of Bellevue, which is right now, they have like a chain link fence that's closed. But if you have that as part of Bellevue.
Just remind where you are. Are you between Bellevue and Pine, or are you between Pine and Fair? When you say
Bellevue and Oceanside Road, we're like
okay.
2 two houses.
Yeah, no, I have the map. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get it right there. Okay.
Right across the street from.
Gotcha.
Not quite on Pine yet. And it's ridiculous. It's going to cause tremendous traffic and congestion, if not accidents. So,
okay,
for what it's worth.
No, listen, please, that's what I said, you and your husband came down, for what it's worth is, we're listening to what you're saying, and we're listening to your concerns, and it's invaluable. So don't get it for what it's worth. It's, that's the purpose of having these hearings, so residents, the neighbors can come.
My heart goes out to those people that all spoke that were on that cul-de-sac, because my son left, he moved, but all those people, this is horrible for them.
Well, like I said, it's a hearing, and
Yeah.
we're hearing you and the neighbors. So I appreciate you and your husband coming down. Like I said, I was just kind of flagging it on my own map exactly where you are, okay? No, thank you very much. I don't have any slips that want to speak here. Dominic? So with that, we can jump over to the online portion of this seminar at our go-to meeting. I think we have a number of people who want to be heard on the online version. Mr. Moderator, if you give us our first guest.
Yes, Supervisor, the first participant is Bradley Perry. Bradley Perry, you are unmuted. Please go ahead and make your comments for us.
Good afternoon, Mr. Perry. If you give your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Brad Perry. I reside at 2948 Alon Street in Oceanside.
If you could just speak a little bit closer to the mic, I just want to hear you and get it for the record. That's all.
Okay. Brad Perry, 2948 Alon Street, Oceanside.
And could the colloquy in the back, please?
Guys.
Cut it.
Yes.
Hold on, Mr. Perry. Thanks.
Are we kidding?
Guys that are talking in the hallway, can we just take it outside because we can't hear?
Okay, there you go, Mr. Perry.
Okay, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to voice my opinion. I have several comments I'd like to make. One is, I find it interesting that not one member of the community has advocated for this proposed rezoning at this meeting. Number two, I'd like to reiterate the question that Joyce Lipton asked. Has there been approval of the sale of the property by the congregation? This is required by law. And the third comment I have is OJC has indicated that their plans are to grow in the future. If this is the case, this quote-unquote small congregation will expand in order to meet their objectives. So those are my comments, and I'd like to thank you, but I would really like an answer from OJC regarding the question that I had.
Yeah, Mr. Perry, before you jump off there, can I just get your address because I didn't get it in the beginning. That's all, please.
Sure, it's 2948 Alon Street in Oceanside. I'm off of Brower. Right?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Mr. Vanessa, if somebody could respond.
Yeah, hi, William Gurman again. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
All right. So the two questions again. One was if we intend, there was congregational approval for this, and and the second answer is our intention is not to grow, but to maintain ourselves where we are right now.
Okay.
And with regard to,
hold on.
if I may, with regard to the requirement that a court approve a sale from a religious institution to a private property owner of religious property, that is something that will be done should the approvals take place, but they're not going to do that in advance of it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Moderator?
Supervisor, next participant is Mark Weissman. Mark Weissman, you are unmuted. Please go ahead and make your comments for us.
Good afternoon, Mr. Weissman. If you could just please give your name and address for the record.
Mark Weissman, 499 Carpenter Avenue, Oceanside, New York.
Okay.
I have specific questions for Barry Nelson and for Patrick Lenahan, and I ask that I not be limited to the 3 minutes for me to make my comments. Is that possible?
The floor is yours now, Mr. Weissman, so please.
I'm going to try to not repeat what's been said already. Unfortunately, what has not been raised here is what's the best use of the land. There's a Facebook group with approximately 1,300 members to oppose this development, and most of the members, if not all, would all consent and would not oppose use of the land as one-family homes. Neither Barry Nelson nor the traffic expert nor anyone opined on why the OJC can't simply build one-family homes there. The reason is simple. It'll probably yield less monies to the temple. I have sent multiple emails to the OJC inquiring about this and to try to open up a dialogue. Nothing has been responded to. One-family homes would absolutely fit into the area. I would opine that all of the Oceanside residents that have come to speak to you and voice their concerns would all be, I'm not going to say thrilled, I'm sure they may want as vacant land, but I don't think they would object to the use as one-family homes. I'm trying to limit to what hasn't been said there. Obviously, there are no other three-story structures in the area. Right now, there are only two ways to get into Oceanside coming from the eastern part of Long Island, and that's Brower Avenue and Oceanside Road. The high school is located a quarter of a mile from the location, and no one discussed, but there's one resident did. Oceanside School 4 is located a quarter of a mile, I believe it's north of the location. I cannot leave my house to go to work 15 minutes before the school opens. I'll be on Brower Avenue or trying to get to 20 minutes. Oceanside, OJC previously sold a portion of their land on Oceanside Road where there are new homes. I believe some of the current owners have come. I'm sure those residents would not object if one-family homes were built. I cannot believe that the fair market value of the homes in the surrounding area will increase if a assisted living is built at the proposed development as opposed to one-family homes. I would ask if I could ask questions now to Barry Nelson.
The 3-minute time is about up, but if Mr. Bonacasa wants to respond to what the proposal is, and it's just a proposal. That's all. Vanessa, hold on. If you could go to the mic so the residents can hear you when they're at home.
Supervisor, with all due respect, this is a public hearing. It's not a situation for cross-examination. I think the speaker has made his feelings known, and I think that's sufficient.
And look, anybody that's watching from home, you can always submit your questions and your concerns in writing as well. Please forward them to myself or Councilman D'Esposito or any of the board members. Mr. Moderator.
Supervisor, next participant is Marty Salzberg. Marty Salzberg, you are unmuted. Please make your comments for us.
Good afternoon, Mr. Salzberg. If you could give your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Marty Salzberg. Legal name is Martha Salzberg, and I live at 535 Links Drive East in Oceanside. I formerly lived on Oceanside Road between OJC and School 4, which is a quarter mile south of the OJC site. I understand OJC's need to sell some of their property to stay in business as a house of worship. I'm concerned that this proposal is for a facility that is much too large and does not take into account the current usage of the space. Mr. Shell and his son, senior and junior, said that they live on Oceanside Road. They live on the cul-de-sac that is still called Oceanside Road that was former property of OJC, previously sold off for single-family homes. I was looking at the site and the fact that the new structure will be built in what is currently the green space on the site. And as the Shell family pointed out, it is virtually a forest. There are a number of trees that are very large, and I think you now have an environmental impact study that needs to be done, because I didn't know that there were blue herons nesting on the site. Blue herons are protected so that if you are destroying their habitat, that may also affect the usage of the site. I was going to speak more about the fact that there are, if I'm reading the town code correctly, section 184-11 and section 267D require as part of this process a survey of all the trees, and every tree over 4-inch caliber has to be on an index of trees. There are shade trees indicated on the plan, but there is no survey showing the existing trees and the removal of trees. The properties where Mr. Shell lives and where Mr. Chen lives and his other neighbor, those are all facing the green swath with large, very, very large trees as an amenity for their view. So I think that you have an environmental study that you have to do, and I think there's information missing from the application on the number of trees that would have to be removed and the size of those trees to accommodate this new proposal. The last thing is, as they've said, and you can look at the drawings, drawing 2.0, the south elevation, which is a third drawing, that's the view.
Supervisor, the next participant is Ryan Sharif. Ryan Sheriff, or Sharif, I apologize.
Ryan, before you go, I just wanted to, I know Marty's watching right now. Marty, the last point, if you want to follow up that in an email or letter format, we really would greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Now, our next speaker is Ryan.
Ryan, you are unmuted. Please go ahead and make your comment.
My name is Ryan Sheriff. I live on 109 Bellevue Avenue. I actually live almost at the corner of Bellevue and Oceanside Road. My two young kids actually attend School 4. To get down and pick them up on a normal day, me or my wife have to leave about 20 minutes early just to get down Oceanside Road. You can't even get to the light at the end of our block. There could be 7 cars deep. Our kids walk around these neighborhoods, walk around these blocks, but the amount of construction that will influx just to build this property, which is a monstrosity in itself, will be obscene for our kids to try and walk around these neighborhoods with. On top of that, you know, he says he's not going to go opt for an IDA, and if he does, well, you know, it's a net positive, net gain. It's never a net gain. Let's ask the members of Valley Stream how they feel about their net gain on the Green Acres Mall, that they're being assessed for the next 20 years of $700 per year on their taxes. These never work out for our neighborhoods. We're being overrun on Atlantic and Lawson, on another one's being proposed on Atlantic. We elect you officials to protect our neighborhoods, not to allow them to come in and destroy our neighborhoods. This is our neighborhood. We moved out of the city to get our kids safe and away in small, quiet towns, not to be overrun with traffic and buildings that we can't afford to have in our towns and support the infrastructure on them. It's impossible.
Okay. We appreciate, listen, I'm looking at the map. I see exactly where you live. And I said, this is a public hearing. We appreciate residents like yourself taking the time to express, you know, their concerns, their feelings, or any sentiment they have on it. And the board members, you know, are listening to exactly what your concerns are.
Supervisor, the next participant is Steve Rizzo. Steve Rizzo, you are unmuted. Please make your comment for us.
Mr. Rizzo, if you give your name and address for the record. Mr. Rizzo?
Mr. Rizzo, you are muted on your side. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello.
There you go, Mr. Rizzo. If you give your name and address for the record.
Sure. Steve Rizzo, 210 Arrow Street, Oceanside.
You're on.
Okay. Now, I just want to reiterate some of the things that have been proposed here and brought up. I think in regards to the traffic, we have, it is unbearable. I live on Arrow Street, and during parts of the day, all year round, I have a hard time just getting off my block onto Oceanside Road. People have brought up the other assisted living facilities that they have worked on. I would just like to point out, and my mother and father are in one of them, that these are facilities that are on at least 4-lane roads. You have 1 lane in each direction on these streets. You have the high school. I'm trying to make my points quick here. I know I only have 3 minutes. And I think it would be to think that traffic would not be affected when you're about to add 77 apartments and 140 memory beds. That's all those families, plus employees, plus delivery trucks that have to come in and out of the facility. I think is disingenuous, naive, and on part of the board, I really hope that you take a strong look at this and do not rubber stamp this application. You have the hospital down the road that now, since they got rid of Long Beach Hospital, ambulance have to rush up Oceanside Road from Long Beach and Island Park to get to South Nassau Hospital. As it is, they have a difficult time and many times have police escorts because the traffic is so bad on Oceanside Road. These are very serious issues, and it's going to impact the quality of life for Oceanside residents as a whole. It's already affects our lives and how much traffic is being on those two streets. And the safety of one other point I wanted to bring up was the safety and security of the kids and the pedestrians. And especially there are a lot of special needs children in the area. You have the high school, School 4 and School 5 that are constantly walking up and down those streets. And with that much of an active driveways going out on both streets with problems with traffic as we anticipate, I think it's a dangerous situation, and I think it's an accident waiting to happen for one of our kids. I really, really do. There are other things I wanted to touch on, but I'll leave it there. This is not there are no other 3-story buildings except for the hospital in our area of Oceanside. That size structure does not belong there. I sympathize with the OJC, but there's better use of this land. There's a shortage of not senior care facilities, but single-family homes on Long Island. That's what people are looking for right now. Not that. Like I said, my parents live in the Bristol and East Meadow. There's not a waiting list. So we have plenty of these type of facilities, and this is not the right.
Mr. Rizzo, I want to thank you for your remarks. And like I said, if you have any additional or anybody else watching at home, please feel free to submit that, electronic form. But we hear you loud and clear, and we thank you for taking the time to come out and speak to us, to give us a heads up. Mr. Moderator?
Supervisor, next participant is Stephen Zureb. Stephen Zureb, you are unmuted. Please make your comment for us.
Mrs. Zurek? Mr. Zurek?
Mr. Zureb, please go ahead. You are unmuted.
Okay.
Supervisor, no other participants have clicked raise your hand on this public hearing.
Mr. Dominic, is there anybody else left in this building that wants to be heard? Okay. Any board members have any comments or anything they want to add?
Motion when we're ready, Supervisor. Oh, Mr. Benesso, I'm sorry.
Mr. Benesso, I'm sorry.
If I may just briefly respond to some of the things raised by the public. Since traffic is clearly the most significant concern, I'd like to just call up Mr. Lenahan to reiterate just the actual traffic generation that a facility like this, assisted living facility, will generate. Mr. Lenahan?
Thank you, Bill. Get my peepers. So the zone, just to kind of put everything in a bow, if I could, the zone change that we're seeking will facilitate the construction of a 119-bed assisted living facility, but it's also going to it'll also result in modifications to the OJC, and we've talked about that in detail. The daily occurrences that happen at the OJC and the traffic that's there now would remain the same, but the potential of that larger building to be used even occasionally for much larger events is significantly reduced, with that structure becoming close to 60% smaller. So when we look at the assisted living, I mentioned a few times that the trip generation is very modest. It's one of the most innocuous things you can do. And I've done this long enough not to question whether there's congestion on these roads. And I've been in enough situations to know that it's hard to find a place where there isn't congestion nowadays. But the question is, were this project to go forward, what would the impact to traffic conditions be? What would the delta be, the difference be? So in looking at what the site would generate, and again, it's mostly staff. The folks who reside here do get some visitors. It's not a lot of visitors, and they're usually off-peak in the evenings and on weekends. But we look at weekday and weekend peak hours of traffic, and just to give you an idea, and this is data from the Institute of Transportation Engineers that we've used in multiple places. It's accepted by reviewing agencies. We've used it in this town many times as well. But in a single hour in the AM peak, we would estimate 23 new trips with the construction of the facility. In the PM peak hour, 31 new trips. And on Saturday, sometime 1 hour, sometime between 11 and 2 o'clock, which is where we would see the peak, 32 trips. And that's combined entering and exiting. So we have a situation where we have access on two county roadways on each side. So this traffic, we already talked about the residents being from within about a 3 to 5 mile radius. So they will come and go in all directions. And when we look at that, we're talking about, if you could stand on the side of the road up the street, that you would see a new vehicle trip, an average of about every 5 minutes. So 5 minutes is a fairly long time, and if I started a stopwatch, it would get awkward really quick. I've threatened to do it. I haven't done it yet, and I'm not going to do it today. But that will not affect traffic conditions. I understand there's congestion with the school, there's congestion with other things, but the strong conclusion here is we will not affect that condition. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Vanessa, somebody that was disconnected got back on. I just want to give them their fair. Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Supervisor Timothy Williams. Timothy Williams, you are unmuted on our side. Please go ahead and make your comment.
Mr. Williams, if you give your name and address for the record.
Hi, it's Tim Williams, Brower Avenue in Oceanside. For full disclosure, I'm the former chairman and current board secretary and board member for the Nassau County IDA, but I'm speaking today because I'm a resident. I live directly on Brower Avenue. I understand, as everybody said, the concern of the JCC and support them wholeheartedly. My children have been to tons of bar mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs at the facility. I think the biggest concern is the gentleman before me spoke and said that walking school children, my children, my wife went to the high school, all of my children, 4 children have graduated from the high school. They all walk, and hundreds of children walk down Brower Avenue directly past this facility to either the pizzeria, the bagel store, or Farmer Joel's. This property is not only adjacent to the high school, but school number 3 directly in front of it. The school buses leave that very block going directly to this proposed facility. School number 6, the elementary and kindergarten center, leaves that facility and kids walk to and parents walk there. This is a highly walkable on a very daily basis. I cannot imagine, having read hundreds of traffic reports, it is illogical to think that there is going to not be an impact, a dramatic impact, a devastating impact on the property and the people who surround it, and the danger to the children who walk past that building. And I'm not exaggerating when I say there are hundreds of children that walk directly in front of this building on both sides every day. I think it's a great project. I support, obviously I've supported senior housing facilities for years and continue. I think the issue here is that this is a great idea in a bad location. I don't see how this can work with the traffic. I personally, living on Brower Avenue for over 20 years, have lost 3 cars wrecked, parked in front of my home, just at random times of the day and evening and in the night. There is no way. I've worked with legislator Coppell and other legislators to address the traffic and the speeding on this street. We've looked at studies to put in speed bumps and everything else, and we probably can't do that. But that just signifies that there's a continued problem. And I think we need to ask the board to pause and table this initiative and allow for more time before any other action is taken, before it comes before a full vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate it. Lastly, again, the last person that we got disconnected is back on there. Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Supervisor. Stephen Zureb. Stephen Zureb, you are unmuted on our side. Please go ahead and make your comment.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for hearing me. Sorry about that.
Can we just get your address for the record?
375 Windsor Avenue in Oceanside.
Okay, thanks.
My name is Steve Zwerb. I'm from Brooklyn, so I've seen what overdevelopment can do to a neighborhood. It can change the character of a neighborhood and it can change the quality of life of the people living there. And I'm really concerned about that happening in Oceanside. The idea that you're putting a 3-story building in there, I agree with many of the people who are talking. It should be single-family homes. That's what people need. Those are what what people are looking for on Long Island, and I think that's important for us. One of the things I'd like to say is that of all the talk about traffic studies and how bad the traffic is over there, Oceanside High School is only operating at 50% right now. So the traffic is bad enough as it is. If they go back full-time, it's going to be even worse. So that's probably going to coincide with construction that you have planned. So this is something that I don't know if that was factored into the traffic study or not, but you're dealing with a school system in the last 6 months that's only been operating at half capacity. So I don't know if that was put into the mix. Another thing I'd like to just real quick, when we say assisted living, I know it's understood that means that at least to meet elderly people over a certain age. Without rezoning, could this be switched from assisted living for the elderly to something like a group home or a rehab facility or something like that, something that does not involve a public hearing? And if the developer does decide to go before the board and get it rezoned, is there a possibility that now we have this 3-story building is now a residential apartment building?
Can I answer those questions? How are you? So this is Councilman Diaz-Posito. So some of those questions that you put forth were actually things that I addressed earlier in the presentation. The first regarding the proposed zoning change actually being approved, and then the project going to the zoning board where it would be denied. What would then happen to the parcel and the application? And Mr. Benesso said that the developer and the project would only agree to build this assisted living, but the supervisor and I took it a step further in saying that if, and this is an if this zoning were to be approved, and then the project was denied at the zoning board, we would then put back onto the calendar the zoning change, the reverse of the zoning change, so that we wouldn't have the ability to just build something that fit the new zoning.
Okay.
And I think there was another question in there, but I forgot it.
I'm sorry. After it's built, can they get it rezoned back to residential? And now we already have the facility built.
No.
Board said we want this residential, or we want it for something else?
You want me to answer that, Mr.
Sure.
Esposito?
Mr. Benesso is going to respond to that.
By changing the zoning of the property to the business district, which is what the assisted living facility needs in order to operate, a residential use would thus be prohibited there. An application would have to come back to this board seeking to rezone the property again to one of the town's multiple resident zoning districts. So it could not be done without a new application to the town board with notice to the community and a public hearing.
Okay, and just one last thing. I'm sorry. When we say assisted living, it's strictly elderly, correct? So this could not be repurposed as a group home or a rehab facility, something like that?
No, it's assisted living is typically seniors.
I know what it is typically. I just want to make sure that no one tries to sneak one by.
Yes, it's elderly people who are in need of some form of assistance in terms of their living. Some simply need medication management, things like that. Others on the other end of the spectrum, in the memory care units, have significant.
Yeah. And, sorry.
It's not independent living, which is a big difference.
Okay.
And just to follow up on that, if this were that zoning was to be approved, when there was restrictive covenants put in place, we as a town board could make sure that in those covenants there would be specifics as no drug outpatient, or the items that you have just brought up.
Okay, thank you for that.
You got it.
Thank you for taking the time to get online and give us your thoughts on this. Mr. Benesso, anything you want to close up with here?
Yes, thank you. Just briefly, again, Lenahan's point that I asked him to reiterate is that this site, with an assisted living facility on it, the assisted living facility aspect of it will generate one new vehicle every 5 minutes. For those neighbors who are worried about traffic and who say that the traffic on Brower and Oceanside roads are bad, and I'm not disagreeing with them, they should frankly be very pleased that a use this light in terms of traffic generation and in terms of parking demand is the one that's being contemplated here. And frankly, that's not by accident. When my client initially looked at this property, he did hold a meeting with the community and talked about a number of different uses that could go there. And then when he spoke to me about it, he advised that he felt that the lowest traffic generator, because there was so much concern about traffic on Oceanside Road and Brower Avenue, the lowest traffic generator of all the options that he had considered would be an assisted living facility. So this is actually a very good complementary use to go with the OJC, which, as you've heard, is reducing its activity. It continues to diminish in terms of its membership. However, they do still want to be there. They are part of the community, and they do provide a community service, as do all our synagogues and places of worship. But this use, in conjunction with that, they're very complementary uses. They're uses that will be good neighbors. You cannot find, with the exception of probably a self-storage facility, you will not find a lower traffic generator than an assisted living facility for a site like this. Now, in addition to that, they're very low activity. When you hear about the neighbors who are concerned about things going on in their backyard, these are not places where you're going to have, if you had single-family houses there, you'd have kids in backyards, you'd have noise, you'd have dogs, you'd have things like that. These are very low activity, especially on the outside uses. The other concern that we've heard a lot about is the three-story concern, and that has to be taken in proper context. Okay, if you're talking about a three-story, 50-foot tall building, yeah, that's totally out of character. We've heard from our architect that we can bring the building height, the eave will be at about 34 feet. Most of the single-family houses in this area were built before the town board changed the regulation with regard to how you measure height. Now you measure height of single-family houses to the highest point of the peak of the roof. Back then, before that change, you measured it to the average of the height of the roof. So many of the homes that are in this area are already 35 feet tall or taller. So you have to take that into consideration when you're considering the impact of the height of this building. Many of the homes in that area are already 35 feet tall or higher. So visually, from an impact standpoint, this is going to be relatively the same as what you have in a lot of the areas. That said, we will continue to work with the community to address the height, to address the appearance. Mr. Mamina also, he didn't mention it before, but one of the concerns about the south elevation of the building facing those residents was that it was kind of a wall effect. He has broken that up by bringing sections of the building out, pushing sections of the building back, breaking it up, making it look more diverse and less massive. So that is something else that can be addressed. But the other thing that needs to be considered is the board and frankly the neighbors really can't look at this in a vacuum and say, well, it's either this or nothing. Something is going to happen on this site. The OJC, as you've heard, they don't need their full property. They don't need the full facility. They are going to sell their property. Now, you've heard it should be single-family houses. We need single-family houses. That's just not true. The statistics, the studies all indicate that at the present time, the greatest need on Long Island is alternative housing. And particularly, as I referenced earlier on, senior housing and assisted living facilities. Those things are greatly in need in a community that is aging, like Oceanside, like Nassau County and Suffolk County in general. And the aesthetics certainly will be worked on during the site plan approval process. The location of dumpsters and generators, that's something too that can be addressed. The concern about the quote-unquote forest, that is, we intend to maintain as much of that green space that already exists, but what we do have to modify or remove will be replaced with new landscaping, new plantings, new trees, and appropriate fencing to complement the residential housing around the property. So, and other than that, just the lighting, somebody mentioned lighting. All lighting will be shielded so as to not generate glare onto neighboring properties. It'll be modern LED lighting that they can control the amount of light spill onto other properties. But if the residents are looking for a quiet neighbor, this is frankly the best neighbor that they could hope for in terms of developing this site. So with all that being said, I very much appreciate the board's patience and consideration of this project, and we ask that the board consider it favorably. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Vanessa, and thank you to your colleagues. Also, thank you to all the residents who came in and all the residents who spoke online, and as well as all of you who've sent in emails and other correspondence we've made part of the record. With that, may I have a motion?
Sure, Supervisor. So I just want to comment on a couple things. Mr. Benesso mentioned that the last time the Oceanside community was able to have a community meeting was over a year ago, and then afterwards he got involved with his client in this project. So with that said, I think that Mr. Benesso has done what he can here today in order to provide the concerned residents both at home and here in the pavilion with his contact information. So I think over the next couple of weeks, he will have the ability to communicate with them, perhaps answer their questions, and meet some of their concerns. So that's the first issue. The second issue is that I know this Thursday, this project is up in front of the Nassau County Planning Commission, so I would like to view their recommendation when it is submitted. And I know that we had some concerns with the neighbors regarding some post office issues, and our next meeting is a night meeting on March 9th. So I think in order for Mr. Benesso to be able to speak to some of the residents and perhaps, understand their concerns and also encourage those are either in support or not, I would like to adjourn both items, leave the record open, and to be heard again at our March 9th meeting, which I believe is at 7 p.m.
Okay, so that just to clarify, it's a motion to adjourn, continue it, and allow comments at the March 9th, Anthony?
Yes, Supervisor.
Okay. With that, may I have a second to that motion?
Second that motion.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Moderator, if you can make an announcement?
Yes, Supervisor, now that the public hearings have concluded, we will be turning off the GoToWebinar platform, but we encourage all of the participants to continue following the town's meeting on the town's live stream found on the Town of Hempstead's website.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Outstanding job as always. With that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the administrative calendar?
There are items 6 through 55 on the administrative calendar.
Okay, does any member of the board wish to be heard on anything on the administrative calendar? Okay. Does any member of the public who is at Town Hall today wish to be heard on it? And I have two slips that are in. First is a Felix Procacci. We're going to move. Move it after? Okay, so we move before or after? Move it after public comment?
Yes, go ahead.
What? This after public comment?
Yeah, we can. We usually don't.
Okay, well,
This is on,
oh, I'm sorry, then.
this is for specific comments on specific items, administrative items.
Do we move the calendar before comments or after comments?
We could move it now.
Okay, So we move to adopt the administrative calendar?
Yep. I move the entire administrative calendar.
For a second?
Yes.
All right, Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Excuse me?
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Bocacci, your name and address for the record, please?
Felix Procacci, Franklin Square.
Good afternoon.
On number 47, what exactly will Ariel Engelmeyer be doing?
The contract provides that she's going to be providing communications consulting work, and that covers a large number of matters, anything from actual communications, responses to communications, and things of that nature.
That's as vague as it can get. We have a lot of communications people. We pay them a lot of money here. We don't need Ariel Engelmeyer unless you can provide tell us what a specialized skill she has that we cannot provide in-house. Okay, item number 10. Will this web services thing, will this be for the town's major website?
Is already here? All right. On the calendar? Ooh. He asked about number 10. Mr. Bocacci, repeat your question again?
Is it for the town's website, its main website? Is this what this contract's for? You're going to redo the website. I see they're located in Kansas. I do a lot of web work. You should get somebody in-house to do it. You always have to keep on changing it. I see the information technology people have a lot of money in their budget. I don't see any reason to go outside to do this kind of work. Nowadays, the tools are available. It's so easy. My son, when he was 12 years old, put together a website. And there's not that much sophistication to our website anyway, the town website. So I don't see, it's just a waste of money. We have people in-house. We did it in the last administration. I didn't think it came out as well, but it's just a matter of redesigning it. But the skill is not a high level of skill to put this thing together, so I think you should save yourself $112,000. Plus, it's going to be more than this. By the time they start charging you extra money on a per-hour basis, you're going to spend a hell of a lot more than this, and who the hell knows how much it's going to be. Also, on number 49, I can see there's quite a bit of money being transferred to full-time salaries. What's the particular reason why the budget is being overhauled by, I think it's hundreds of thousands of dollars? You're moving money from contingency, from part-time, all the way to full-time employees. Why so much?
The budget resolutions are to make the increases to the Schedule A people self-funded.
Okay.
We wanted to decrease various lines in the budget just to compensate for it, so at the end of the day, it's a zero sum.
Huh. Good work, John. That's great. That's great. So it's a zero impact on it. That's great.
Well, the thing is, if you didn't need the part-timers and all that other stuff, you could have just saved yourself the increase. You didn't have to give that 2% increase. But once again, I just want to emphasize, you don't need Ariel Engelmeyer because she has no defined task. You were unable to tell me that task. Therefore, you should not be putting things in the budget that don't need to be put in. This is a total waste of money. And you, this board, cannot justify it. So it's as simple as that. And I would just want to emphasize again, the website can be done in-house. The skill level these days, the tools are very sophisticated. A 12-year-old could do it, and my 12-year-old son did do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bocacci. Have a good afternoon. Next slip I have is a Ms. Meriday. Ooh. Nope. Yeah, okay. I don't have any other slips from the public. So with that, Madam Clerk, I think we called it. We did call it.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got to vote.
We voted on them. Oh, I'm sorry.
Now we have
No, to vote on, I'm sorry.
Have a motion again.
Make a motion to adopt the administrative calendar.
a motion to adopt administrative calendar.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito. Councilman Dunn. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Supervisor, I make a motion we adjourn.
Amen. Yes. Number 2.
So that's a second, Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Clavin.
I vote aye on that.
Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Councilman Muscarella.
Okay, now that the formal portion of the board meeting is adjourned, the town board will remain to listen to residents. I have a number of public comments. First, we'll start off with our guest. He was just here moments ago. Let me introduce to you Felix Procacci. Good afternoon, Mr. Procacci.
Felix Procacci, Franklin Square. At the last meeting, I asked about my ethics inquiry and whether Mr. Nocella was going to respond to it. He did not respond to it, and I want to know if Mr. Nocella has any intention of responding to it.
Mr. Procacci, I just want you to know that I did speak to Steve Leventhal, who is our counsel to the Ethics Board, and asked him to acknowledge receipt of your filing, and he told me he did so.
He never responded to me. I did call him again, and then we verbally talked, but I asked him if he submitted it to the rest of the Ethics Board members, and then he responded, I don't remember the exact words, but essentially, we're in a pandemic, but I'm not sure how the pandemic affects email. There's no transmission of, they could send an email, they could send snail mail, whatever you want to do, you could call him up. But as far as I know, the last time I spoke with him, he did not transfer that information to the other board members. So I'd like to know what the status of my inquiry is, and are you going to go forward with doing the proper investigation per the law?
The inquiry that you made will be transmitted to all board members of the Ethics Board, if it has not been already.
Okay.
I'm one of them, and I have received it, and...
Well, I sent it to you, that's why you received it.
But you wanted an acknowledgement, so I'm giving you the
Okay.
acknowledgement that you requested.
Can you email me that acknowledgement, please?
I have no problem doing so.
Thank you. I submitted a FOIL appeal to FOIL Appeals Officer Don Durham on, I think it was January 12th the first time. I spoke with Mr. Durham on February 2nd because he didn't respond to it at all. He said he was working on it. He was to have the AB schedule issue. On February 17th, I followed up with another email to Mr. Durham on the FOIL appeal, and he didn't respond to that. This FOIL is going on since September 9th. I've been very patient with back and forth with Marie Jerome for many months, saying this and that. You had to wait for the customer to get back to you as far as contractual things. You didn't have the data on site. Doesn't make any sense, but I went along with everything you said. Now, I want to know if Mr. Durham has any intention of responding to me, and I believe it was for the H2M details. I says, if you don't have the records, please indicate no records exist or provide me the records, and he did neither. So would like just to know what your intention is on that FOIL appeal.
Okay, we're going to take that under advisement. We'll follow up. Thank you.
Under advisement? It's the law. You're going to take the law under advisement? He didn't respond in the legal amount of time, and you're going to take that under advisement? How about telling Mr. Durham to do his job? How about telling Mr. Marino to provide the information to Mr. Durham so he could do his job? That's a more appropriate response than you're going to take the law under advisement. Anyway, also there was 15, 16 people there at the meeting today outside. We could have fit them. They didn't have to, half of them were standing up. They could have sat in their hair comfortably just like you people do. I don't know why we have to stand up and you guys get to sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Procacci. Have a good afternoon. Next, I'd like to invite up to the podium for our next public comment is a Stuart Kroll. Give a second there for him to wipe that down, Mr. Kroll, and then if you please give your name and address for the record.
Stuart Kroll, Great Neck.
Welcome to the town of Hempstead.
The fact that the town shelter has reopened its TNR program to a capacity of 15 cats per week, one per trapper, is a tragic joke. It is quite apparent that no one on the town board cares about animals, in particular cats. I would have expected nothing different. Mr. Clavin, you have stated your great concern for your employees. I just made an appointment to have 4 cats fixed at the town of North Hempstead Clinic. Knowing Judy Bosworth, I feel fairly confident to say that she does care about her employees. When you had your fundraiser for 200 people, when the state limit was 50, I assumed that you care about those employees too. I guess it wasn't quite as evident. The state COVID numbers are plummeting. When will the volunteer program reopen? Why must all the dogs languish inside? To use a tragic occurrence for political purposes is really despicable, about as low as it gets. All About Cats in Freeport, which doesn't have a $5.5 million budget, fixes close to 400 cats per month. They have been open to the public for approximately 7 months now. They care tremendously about their employees. With so few cats at the shelter, are the employees working every week? I'm sure the taxpayers would like to know that with so little to do that they're getting something for their money. The FOILs we requested months ago regarding the 89 cats that were euthanized have still not been provided. This has gone on for an awfully long time. They are way overdue, and we're now at a point where we're going to have to take some sort of action to get them because apparently nobody's providing them. The ASPCA in Glendale is now opening a Brooklyn location as well as their Queens location to help with the tremendous backlog of cats that need to be fixed. Everything is now reopening on a much larger basis, including sports arenas at 10% capacity. The main boardroom, which we're now all in, holds close to 300 people. 10% of that would be 30 people. Why are the attendees at today's meeting forced to wait in a cold, crowded room while there's plenty of room here and everybody's just sitting here, quite comfortably? Before returning to the callous refusal to reopen the shelter at a functional capacity, a very limited functional capacity, we still have to find, to the best of my knowledge, why an Oceanside Sanitation Commissioner, a Mr. Ryan Hensley, I believe, is still there. If he's not there, somebody could advise me otherwise. 2 years ago, on his Facebook screenshot, he made anti-Semitic, racist, LBGT, and even made fun of disabled children. Mr. Clavin and Mr. D'Esposito, before a press conference, issued a call for his resignation. I don't recall anybody, Bruce actually made a statement on this, I don't recall anybody else actually saying anything. Mr. Carini, you were talking the other day about alleged bloviating. Do you have anything to say on this? This man made comments he should be removed for immediately.
Mr. Kroll, we don't have the authority to remove Mr. Helmsley. Well, if you understand it, but you come here each week or every 2 weeks and say, why isn't the town board doing anything? Both Supervisor Clavin and I, because I represent the Oceanside community, called for the resignation of Mr. Helmsley. It's now, I know that the state legislature, I think, has proposed a law, both in the Assembly and the Senate, to give them the opportunity to recall people of special districts. So we've called for the resignation. The state legislature seems to be doing their part. So when they pass that law, and the governor signs it into law, then I guess the state will have the authority to recall him from that election.
The more pressure, presumably, that's put on this gentleman, and I use that word very loosely, the more likely he is to resign. So that's why it's important that everybody come out and ask him to resign, so that maybe he'll feel enough pressure and he'll voluntarily step aside. Mr. Clavin, I don't think you ever expected that opening up the shelter at a ridiculously low utility would placate anybody.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Kroll, visiting us here in the town of Hempstead. Always good to see you, and stay safe. Next, I'm going to bring up Maria Engel. Good afternoon, Ms. Engel. If you give your name and address for the record, please.
As you said, Maria Engel, Oceanside.
Okay.
I've been here many times, and the last time I came, I was pretty much dismissed. So I have a question for you. Since I reported the loss of my cat timely, the town of Hempstead obviously could not have rejected my request for searches or could not have decided to put my cat up for adoption because it was a timely request. But since then, while the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter has vehemently denied ever having my cat there, I obtained FOIL documents which proof, black and white, beyond a reasonable doubt, that on 2/15/2020, 12 days after I lost my cat, at 1:46 p.m., rather, my cat was documented as being there and as appearing normal. So something that this board and the Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter have continuously ignored or denied. So my question is, under what authority does this board and the shelter decide to dismiss me and to dismiss FOIL documents that I have obtained, as I said, as not being conclusive? The document that I rely on has the following caption: Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter Adoption Center. Adoption Center. So what I described earlier had this caption. So for anyone, including this board, to dismiss me, I wonder under what authority you dismiss a FOIL document that proves otherwise. So proves my point. Then I have something else to add. Since then, since I lost my cat, I attempted to file a lost cat report 3 times in Hewlett, where I belong, the precinct, rather, that I belong to. On those 3 occasions, 3 separate policemen refused to accept my report. And I asked why, and I was told to ask my councilman, Anthony Desposito, who is the one who instructed them to not accept this kind of report.
All right, now I'm going to stop you right there. So you are telling me that a 4th Precinct police officer told you that I contacted them not to take a report?
I swear to God.
So you are basically saying that a crime was committed?
I swear to God that I was told this by 3 separate policemen. That
Okay, what are the... And when was this?
Between February and April.
February and April. So for 3 months, you had 2 police officers or 3 police officers.
Let's say end of February.
Okay, and did you ask to speak to one of their superiors, or you just took their word for it?
I mean...
Did you ask to speak to... Ma'am, did you ask to speak to one of their superiors?
I don't know that.
Okay, well, listen, I'm going to leave it here, and this is the last time I'm going to speak on this issue. You've come here for months claiming that the town of Hempstead has stole your cat. Nobody here has your cat. The town of Hempstead Animal Shelter doesn't have your cat. General Services doesn't have your cat. Clavin doesn't have your cat. I don't have your cat. That's one thing. But to come here and accuse me of committing a crime with members of the Nassau County Police Department is absolutely ludicrous.
I did not accuse you.
You just did. You just did.
No, I just related. I just quoted
Thank
their
you, Ms.
response.
Engel. Thank you very much. It's good to see you as always. Safe ride home. Next, we're going to bring up, we're going to clean the mic now, Diane Madden. Good afternoon, Ms. Madden. If you give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Diane Madden, Hempstead. I just wanted to reiterate that about 50% of the people that were looking to speak today to the board had to stand for 3 hours outside while this pavilion is empty. And everyone sitting in this pavilion could probably be on Zoom, and the public could sit here. Black History Month. The posters are lovely. I'd like to propose again that this board bring in an outside, reputable diversity consultant, because your hiring is discriminatory. And that's evident just in the amount of jobs and promotions that you passed today. This town is being run like a private family business. And I hope that you bring in that diversity consultant, because things are changing and people are paying attention. As far as the commenting virtually, is there any plan for the board to allow virtual comment on the administrative calendar, or on the miscellaneous calendar, because it would be a lot more comfortable to sit from home than to stand almost on top of each other initially for 3 hours. I'd like to propose that you open up virtual comment, as you do for the board members and for employees, during the administrative calendar and miscellaneous. I also like to propose that you offer the public the opt-out of the mailers. The mailers seem as frequent as they were with Tony Santino. It seems every single week I'm getting a mailing from Town of Hempstead that could be a simple email communication. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. It's not environmentally friendly. Please consider an opt-out of the mailers. I'd like to know when you're opening the TNR fully, when you're allowing volunteers to re-enter the animal shelter, and when you're opening it up to the public. New York City announced that they're opening inside movie theaters fully, without limitations. So if they're opening up movie theaters in New York City at this time, I think you can allow the TNR program to be re-implemented, welcome the volunteers, and also the public back to the animal shelter. All of the complaints that come to this board are simply because the shelter is mismanaged, and that was something you promised to fix, Supervisor Clavin. I'd also like to know if you've spent CARES Act money on payroll.
Thank you so much, Ms. Madden, for being here today. Next, after
Is someone going to answer my question?
Ms. Maida Meriday.
You're not going to
Ms.
answer my question?
Ms. Madden, the 3 minutes. Thank you so much for being here today. Next, I'm going to invite up a Janice Blake to speak.
Just for the record,
Ms. Madden, please,
Just for
Ms.
the
Madden,
record,
please,
Supervisor, you gave
Ms. Madden, please, can you turn the mic off?
people that
Ms.
spoke
Madden,
today.
thank you, thank you. Ms. Madden, please be respectful. We are too. The next speaker's been waiting. You've been pointing that out. So, thank you, Ms. Madden. Thank you so much. Thank you. We are very grateful for you to joining us today. Next, I'm going to ask a Janice Blake to please come up. Hold on, Ms. Blake. Before they do it, let her wipe it down. Would you please? No, we have to be. That's okay. That's all right. All right, Ms. Blake, if you could give your name and address for the record.
Janice Blake, Elmont, New York.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm a trapper. I trap cats. And this week I was supposed to pick up 2 cats. Friday morning, or Thursday morning rather, I dropped off 1. And it was the stroke of 8 o'clock. I knocked on the door. Nobody answered. My friend walked up. I said, hey, can you turn this cat in for me? She said, sure. And I said, I'll have to come back later for my other 2. So I did what I needed to do, which was to volunteer at Island Harvest in the food distribution. And I got done about 9 o'clock. I went back over there at 9:30. In the meantime, I'm calling Mary at CVA. What time should I pick up my cats? What's a good time to pick up my cats? Is there anybody there? Should I pick up my cats? When should I pick up my cats? Nobody answered. So I went there at 9:15. The note on the door says, CVA, knock or call. I said, well, I already called, so I knocked. Somebody said, we're in surgery. You'll have to wait. I said, how long? And they said, not long. I said, okay, I'll be in my car. So I just sat in my car and played around on my phone, whatever. I could wait. It didn't matter. So a lady brought me out my 2 cats, and I went home. I get a call 11:30 in the morning from Mary, and she says, you're being canceled from bringing in cats next week. I said, oh, why? Because you knocked on our door while we were doing surgery. Okay, so there's no sign that says don't knock if you're doing surgery. Okay, that's just, maybe it's out there somewhere, but I've never seen it in print. And I know we're in the midst of this huge cancel culture, and if someone doesn't like you, they just black you out. But this is ridiculous in the middle of kitten season. And in the last 2 weeks, I have TNR'd over 10 female cats. This is on my own time, with my own equipment, my own gas, my own car, smelling like cat urine and other things. And to be canceled from bringing in my 1 cat per day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at CVA is unconscionable. And it's not about the cats. It's about throwing your weight around because you can. That being said, I'm a tax-paying citizen. They're taking money from the government, which is TOH, animal shelter. So they can't cancel me. That's not even, let's not go there. They can't cancel me. So anyway, I had a lady call whose cat I was supposed to TNR this week, and she called the shelter, and she got me reinstated this week because Mary's on vacation. Okay, so she probably doesn't even know that I'm bringing a cat in, but anyway. Also, it's also unconscionable that the people are not allowed in here. I mean, really, you should read some other news besides the mainstream media, like what's going on in Germany. And there's lawsuits being brought against all these people who are orchestrating this shutdown thing. I do not submit to 5G radiation, and they're going up all over the place. There's one on Grant Street and Hempstead.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Blake, and thank you very much for your work with Long Island Harvest. We, I don't know if you know that the town board unanimously teamed up with them, what was it, for $2 million in grants last year for food and security. So we are very thankful for your working with them. They're a wonderful group, and we tell you to have a wonderful afternoon.
Good,
And our last speaker this afternoon is Kelly Schubert.
That's why I don't want to.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Safe ride home. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. All right. Kelly Schubert. So let me finish wiping it down, Ms. Schubert, okay? Good afternoon. Just name and address for the record.
Kelly Schubert, Merrick, New York. And good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
I have some documents that I printed off of the Department of Health for New York State with Andrew Cuomo's executive order stating that essential businesses are exempt from the guidance. Animal care operations as defined below have been deemed essential and are exempt under the executive order when he ordered everything closed. And that includes spay and neuter. So I was wondering, I know you've said that Dr. Newberg uses the CDC guidelines, which I did contact them also. And so is there a way to reach out to him to find out?
We're in contact with Dr. Dave on a regular daily basis, and we've been able to open up some of our programs again, and we're always going to follow the advice of our medical professional. He's done a stellar job with our coworkers, providing their safety and as well as the safety for the taxpayers. So, like I said, we're in a daily conversation with him, my chief of staff and everybody else, and I have all the faith in the world in how he's guiding, with the safety protocol here in the town.
What is he using if I'm looking at something that's saying, that's what I'm...
Well, I feel confident that an emergency room treating physician at Winthrop University who went to medical school and has a degree really has a good grasp on exactly what's taken place and exactly how we deal with the COVID. So I can't speak to what he's using, but I have all the confidence in those degrees and you know what? In the lives he's already saved prior to this COVID and during this COVID, which I know firsthand he has.
I'm not disputing that he went to medical school or any whatever. I'm just saying, you're saying he's using CDC guidelines, but I'm reading CDC guidelines and the governor's own executive orders, which are...
Those have worked out well. So, like I said, Dr. Dave's he's our medical expert. And like I said, look, some people want everything reopened up right away. It didn't quite work out well for a lot of people when they started doing that in March and December. Like I said, we were able to actually reopen a part of the shelter with the doctor's guidance. I said, you know what, if everybody got a vaccination, we wouldn't be where we are right now. And hopefully at one point when the governor and the federal government get some vaccinations down here, we're already looking forward to that. So like I said, the doctor, I think, has everyone's health and life and interest here. And like I said, we'd love everything to be reopened, but we're going to do it really carefully and really safe because we're really concerned for not only the residents, but all of our coworkers here.
Going to have to respectfully disagree that
okay.
I don't understand how the shelter 15 cats a week is doing anything.
Well, actually, we're doing it two ways. We're doing it two ways. We're doing the shelter and we're still doing the outsourcing so we can try and get a total mass. So when people just say, well, we actually continue that outsourcing to supplement that. So we actually have two programs going right now to do that. So it's, we shouldn't just say it's just one, because it's not. We really thought this out and we said, we'll keep the other private entity while we're starting the process of reopening. So we really have taken steps to ensure and provide that service.
Both are appointment only, which I don't know if anybody's ever trapped a cat is actually...
It's funny, when I take my dog to the vet, they do the same thing to me. They make me sit in the car and I got to do it by appointment only. Brady loves it.
Making an appointment to trap a cat is like saying you're going to...
Okay.
I don't know. It's crazy to think a cat's going to be on your schedule when you go to trap a feral. And I was wondering about the CARES money with, I know some of it went to the libraries. Is there anything that we can find online about, it was 133 million, I think we.
Went to libraries. No, libraries submitted expenses that were proper under the CARES Act funding, and the ones that we were able to do, we reimbursed them. We did a resolution for them on it. That was a public hearing I think we had like last month.
I wasn't able to come last month.
Okay. Like I said, they had to submit for review the proper expenses. They, really weren't foreseen as a result of coronavirus. Let it be for cleaning, disinfecting, PPE equipment, and other related that had to be reviewed and approved.
Libraries?
What?
Sorry, you're talking about the libraries?
Yeah.
What about any remaining money? Like did they get the balance of it, or how do we find out what's,
The money's been utilized.
and is there a way for the town, is it in the records from last meeting on?
Yeah, we've been doing every transfer. John Mascarino, we've had everything open and public. We've actually had public hearings. We're probably the only town or entity in New York State that you actually can find it when everyone else, the money just disappeared. So, like I said, nobody's quite sure what happened to the $110 million that Nassau County got, or I think, John, how much was it? $4 billion, $5 billion New York State got? We're not too sure what the state did with the $5 billion, but at least we did it open, transparent, and it's actually acknowledged by the Newsday editorial board that we were open and transparent in the entire process.
All right, well, hopefully.
And look, like I said, when we get there, I'll be happy to reopen everything and get it going, but I am going to follow the advice of the doctor. And like I said, when you've come here, you've always been very, very, reasonable. And like I said, that's why you in particular, look, we reopened part of it, but I made sure we kept the outside, just because I understand the importance of the program. I really do. That's why I said I didn't just cut off one with the town board. We thought this out. And I mean this sincerely. You're a really, really reasonable person. You've always been that. You're very passionate. I respect that. And like I said, we do appreciate when you come here because, you know what, like you're wearing it on your sleeve. You tell us what it's about, but we do take a lot of stuff you talk about into consideration when we make decisions. Don't ever think that. And I mean that.
I try to be respectful.
You're awesome.
That I would want to be treated respectfully.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to be heard and.
And Kelly, I enjoy calling it. You are. You're always very good about it. That's what I said. So I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
It's tough to, like I said, I really like the people at the shelter. I really, I miss, bringing my cats there and.
Totally get it. Totally get it. I really do. Like I said, hopefully we'll fully get there at some point. And you'll come in and be like, finally. And hopefully the world will be a better place.
And just for the record, this is really hard for me to say, but I feel that was really disrespectful the way you spoke to that woman, that an older woman that is not going to question the police if they did say to her that they did that. She's not going to make that up.
Ma'am, and I find it disrespectful that someone would come here and accuse me and 3 Nassau County cops who have always, as far as I know, do such great work here in Nassau County protecting and serving, to accuse that the 4 of us are in some sort of conspiracy of making sure that her report about her lost cat wasn't filled out or refused to be filled out. I think that was disrespectful.
Also, I think it's evident. We've come for months, and not only have I had my counsel and gone through it, we've really tried to go the extra mile and I get it. There's a level of confusion there, but I think townwide, we've really put all the resources we can. And I told her the last meeting, if she's very passionate about it, she thinks there's other recourse, there's only one step left for her to come in and kind of make the comment about the police's, you know what, I don't believe that. I don't think it's accurate, but that's a bold statement to make. And, the councilman takes it very personally because it insinuates he had some sort of involvement. He has a wonderful reputation, and he took it personally. And she probably didn't mean it intentionally. But you know what, it was sort of a veiled, it wasn't a veiled side. It was a slight, and that's why. But like I said, we've really gone above and beyond to try and, Ted explained over and over, and this has been like a 9-month process here. And I know you've been here, so you've seen. All right.
Hey, I look forward.
Well, good seeing you. Safe drive home. All right, you take care. Well, thank you all very, very much, and have a wonderful day.